At 8:59:59 on a Tuesday morning, I placed a paper bag on the reception counter of the St. Orison Hotel. At exactly 9, the doors locked behind me. 1/10 of a second later, every light in the lobby turned red. That tiny delay was not bad luck. Someone had hidden a beacon inside my courier app, and the delivery timer was the switch. Before I could throw the phone away, 4 women entered through 4 different doors. Maren Lockwood came from the East Hall in a black coat, carrying the calm smile she used whenever she had already purchased the building around her target. Vesper Arden appeared on the balcony with 12 armed retainers and the old silver ribbon she used to tie around my wrist when we were children. Aster Quinn stepped out of an elevator, still wearing the white stage dress from a concert that had ended across the city only 7 minutes earlier. Then the temperature dropped, frost climbed the windows, and Solenne Rook walked through the revolving door while snow fell from a perfectly clear sky. All 4 looked at me. All 4 said, "Mine." The hotel staff fled. The sprinklers froze. Maren quietly locked the emergency exits. Aster began humming a note that made my knees weak. Vesper told her guards to prepare a padded transport van. Solenne tasted a snowflake from her fingertip and announced that my pulse was accelerating. I set the takeout bag on the floor, loosened my shoulders, and picked up a brass luggage cart. "Before anyone tries to drag me into a basement," I said, "we are going to discuss consent, my missing father, and whoever thought weaponizing a delivery timer was clever." That was the moment all 4 of them realized I was not going to stand there like frightened furniture. It was also the moment the ceiling exploded. To explain why 4 of the most dangerous women in Crownspire were fighting over a broke university freshman, I need to go back 9 days, to the night my father vanished and left me with 11 coins, a wet jacket, and the worst set of instructions any parent has ever written. I had finished my last food delivery just before midnight. Rain hammered the old apartment block so hard that water ran down the stairwell in silver streams. Our front door was open when I reached the 3rd floor. I did not walk straight inside. My father, Rowan Mercer, had spent my childhood teaching me that an open door could be an invitation, a warning, or a trap. He had also taught me how to check the hinge, read muddy footprints, and use the reflection in a dark phone screen to see around a corner. At the time, I thought those were harmless games invented by a man who had watched too many spy films. That night, the lessons kept me alive. 3 different sets of wet boot prints crossed our threshold. 1 set went in and came back out. 2 went in and had not yet returned. A narrow shadow moved across the kitchen wall. I backed away, silently removed my bright courier jacket and draped it over the railing. Then I rolled an empty glass bottle down the hall. Someone inside whispered, "Movement on the left." 2 men rushed out. They chased the yellow jacket as it slid down the wet stairs, and I slipped through the doorway behind them. The living room looked as if a storm had developed a personal grudge. Chairs were overturned, drawers hung open, and the framed photograph of my mother had been placed face down rather than broken. That detail mattered. Whoever searched the apartment was violent, but not careless. My father's bedroom was empty. His travel case was gone. So were 3 shirts, his passport, an antique compass, and the locked metal box he kept beneath the loose floorboard. He had packed in a hurry, but he had packed deliberately. My phone vibrated. The first message said, "Elias, do not call." The second said, "I am drawing them away from you. Wait until the semester begins, then go to Crownspire University. The astronomy building has a basement room numbered B-17. Your mother left something there." The third message arrived in fragments. "Do not give anyone your blood. Do not let 4. Then the conversation disappeared. His account had activated an emergency wipe, deleting our history and blocking every incoming call. For 1 ugly second, it looked as though my father had taken our savings and abandoned me. Then I noticed a dark red smear on the windowsill. Blood. Not much, but fresh. I touched it with the edge of a receipt, folded the paper, and put it in my wallet. Anger came after fear. My father might have been secretive, irresponsible with money, and pathologically allergic to honest explanations, but he had not run because he stopped caring. He had run because he believed someone would use me to reach him. Heavy footsteps sounded in the hall. "Search every room," a woman ordered through an earpiece. "The younger Mercer may still be nearby." I was the younger Mercer. I pulled my courier jacket back up with its drawstring, put it on, lifted an abandoned food bag, and walked out as if I had every right to be there. 4 men in charcoal suits filled the landing. Their leader held an old photograph of my father at 19. The resemblance between us was unfortunate. Same dark eyes, same sharp nose, same expression that made strangers assume we were arguing even when we were ordering tea. "Courier," the leader said. "Which apartment?" I glanced at the order number written on the bag. "3rd floor, number 36. Nobody answered. If you live there, your noodles are becoming a legal weapon. Did you see this man?" He showed me the photograph. I let my eyes rest on it for half a second. "No, but if he ordered the pepper broth, tell him the restaurant forgot the spoon." One guard laughed. The leader did not. "Take off the hood. Show me a badge." His expression changed. He was accustomed to obedience and had mistaken my uniform for weakness. I shifted the hot broth container in my left hand. "If you are police, identify yourself. If you are not, move." He reached for me. I crushed the thin container between us. Pepper broth hit his eyes, and his shout filled the stairwell. I drove my shoulder into the second man, hooked his ankle, and sent him into the third. I did not stay to admire the result. Heroic poses are how people get grabbed from behind. I ran down 2 flights, vaulted the railing, landed hard enough to rattle my teeth, and exited through the laundry room. By the time they reached the street, I had traded jackets with a delivery rider I knew and was walking beneath a transparent umbrella in the opposite direction. From the shelter of a closed tram stop, I watched a black limousine stop outside our building. A woman stepped out wearing a dark green dress and no coat. Rain touched the air around her and curved away before it reached her skin. Maren Arden had not appeared on television for years, but even I recognized the head of Arden Consolidated. Her face was famous in the same way old palaces were famous: beautiful, expensive, and associated with several unexplained deaths. Beside her stood a young woman in a silver-gray coat. My breath stopped. Vesper. She had lived with us for 2 years when we were children. Her mother had disappeared during a succession conflict, and my father had taken her in under another surname. Vesper was never my biological sister, but she had followed me everywhere, called me her brother, and cried for 3 days when the Arden family reclaimed her. We exchanged letters until every address I used began returning empty envelopes. Now she stared at our apartment window with the stillness of a hunter. Maren touched her shoulder. Vesper shook off the hand and went inside alone. I should have left immediately. Instead, I stayed long enough to see the men carry out my pillow, 3 shirts, an old sketchbook, and the blue scarf Vesper had given me at age 9. She walked behind them, holding the scarf against her chest. That was not normal nostalgia. I took a picture of the license plate, saved it to a private server, and finally walked away. The rain grew colder. Every inexpensive hotel near the station required a deposit I did not have. My father had controlled our shared account, and whatever emergency measure he activated had frozen it. I checked my wallet twice as if money might reproduce in darkness. 11 coins remained. I spent 1 on a call. Maren answered before the first ring finished. "Where are you?" No greeting, no sleepy confusion, just a question sharpened by panic. "That depends. Are you asking as my oldest friend, or as the terrifying owner of half the rental units in Northbridge?" "Elias." "Old friend, then." I looked back toward the apartment. 2 black vehicles had started circling the block. "My housing situation has become complicated. Send your location. I need a room at market price. Small is fine. Locks are important. Location. I can explain first. If you make me ask again, I will buy every building on your street and find you by eliminating the places where you are not." That sounded like Maren. I sent the pin. 7 minutes later, a plain gray car stopped beside the tram shelter. Maren jumped out before the driver could open her door. She wore pajama trousers under a long wool coat, and she carried a blanket, a thermos, dry shoes in my size, and an expression that promised consequences. She wrapped the blanket around me, grabbed my face between both hands, and searched for injuries. "Who did this?" "The weather deserves most of the credit." "Who?" "People connected to Arden Consolidated searched our apartment. Dad is missing." I escaped. "I do not know whether they want him, me, or the family recipe for burned toast." Maren went completely still. Heat spread through her palms. Not metaphorical warmth. Steam rose from the rain on my cheeks. "Your hands," I said. She released me at once and hid them in her sleeves. The car heater was high. It was a terrible lie. I filed it away with the bending rain around Maren Arden. I am not going to your home if that puts you in danger, I said. A vacant property is enough. You are coming with me tonight. Tomorrow we can negotiate whatever absurd rent lets you preserve your pride. Maren, someone invaded your apartment. You have no money, your lips are blue, and you are arguing about a lease. If stubbornness generated electricity, you could power the district. The driver opened the rear door. Maren pushed me inside, sat beside me, and poured hot ginger tea into the thermos lid. I accepted it because refusing useful help is not independence. It is vanity wearing work boots. One night, I said. Then we agree on rent. Of course. Her smile was sweet enough to make me suspicious. As the car pulled away, I noticed 3 motorcycles following at a discreet distance. Maren saw me looking. Security, she said. Since when does a landlord need a motorcade? Since one of her tenants became a magnet for armed strangers. That answer was almost good enough. Her house stood beyond the northern reservoir, hidden behind cedar trees and a stone wall. Calling it a house was generous to houses. It had 3 wings, an indoor garden, and enough windows to maintain a private weather system. You told me you lived from rental income, I said. I do. How many planets do you rent? Only the profitable ones. Maren gave me a key and pointed upstairs. Second door on the left, shower. Fresh clothes are already inside. I looked at her. Already? The driver keeps emergency clothing. In my exact size? He is extremely professional. I did not move. Maren met my eyes for 2 seconds, then looked away. A faint red color touched her ears. Fine, she muttered. I bought them last month. Why? Because you work until midnight, refuse to carry an umbrella, and once arrived at my birthday dinner wearing a shirt held together by a safety pin. That shirt had character. That shirt had structural failure. Her explanation was plausible but incomplete. I took the key without pretending otherwise. Thank you. We will talk after I stop dripping on the marble. The upstairs corridor was lined with framed drawings. At first, I assumed they belonged to some experimental artist with a personal hatred of perspective. Then I recognized a crooked red sailboat I had drawn at age 8. Every picture was mine. There were school sketches, ridiculous cartoons, handwritten birthday cards, and a pencil portrait of Maren that made her left eye twice the size of her right. She had preserved them behind museum glass. At the end of the corridor, a bedroom door stood open. A lamp illuminated a desk where a journal had been positioned at a perfect angle. A silver key rested on top of it. Across the room, an alarm began ringing inside a wardrobe. The arrangement was too deliberate. Maren had built a trail and expected me to follow it. I entered far enough to turn off the alarm without opening the wardrobe. Then I closed the journal, placed the key beside it, and searched for a bathroom. There was only one, connected to her room. A small black lens hid inside the smoke detector. I climbed onto a chair, covered it with a hand towel, and found 2 more cameras aimed at the bed and wardrobe. They were not part of a normal security system. Normal cameras protect doors. These watched people. I did not smash them. Evidence is more useful when the person who placed it does not know you found it. I showered behind a curtain I rigged from 2 blankets, dressed, and checked my clothes. A rigid grain beneath the waistband of the new trousers pressed against my skin. I cut the seam with nail scissors and removed a tracker no bigger than a lentil. My oldest friend had prepared my wardrobe, her bedroom, and my arrival before I called. That meant she knew I might need shelter. Perhaps she knew why. I wrapped the tracker in foil and left it on her pillow. Then I went downstairs to wait. Maren returned carrying shopping bags she no longer needed as an excuse. She stopped when she saw me seated at the dining table with the covered camera, the tracker, and one of my framed childhood drawings arranged in front of me. Her face emptied of color. Sit down, I said. Elias, I can explain. Good. Start with how you knew my size. Continue with the cameras. Finish with why a tracking device was sewn into my clothes. For several seconds, the only sound was rain against the glass roof. Maren slowly put down the bags. Are you afraid of me? She asked. I am deciding whether I should be. Pain crossed her face, followed by something darker. The air around her warmed. A candle on the table lit without being touched. There it was again. No heater. No coincidence. I knew the Arden family had begun searching for Rowan, she said. I did not know they would reach your apartment tonight. I prepared the house because I wanted you somewhere I could protect you. Protection does not require a camera pointed at a bed. Her silence answered that charge. And the tracker? You disappear when you think your problems could endanger me. You have done it since we were 12. So you decided I no longer deserve the choice? I decided I could not survive losing you. The words were not shy or ambiguous. She looked directly at me, trembling but resolute. I love you, Elias. I have for years. Not as a friend, not as the boy who carried my school bag. I want mornings, arguments, groceries, illnesses, stupid old age, all of it. When you kept treating me like a harmless companion, I thought if I created the right moment, you would finally see me. I had suspected her feelings. I was not dense enough to mistake the spare key, jealous silences, and 27 saved birthday cards for ordinary friendship. But suspicion was not permission, and love did not excuse surveillance. I see you, I said. I also see 3 hidden cameras and a tracker. Maren's eyes shone. Tell me what punishment you want. This is not a game. Remove every camera. Give me the network access logs. No tracking me without my knowledge. No buying my employer, my school, or the pavement beneath my feet. If you want a chance with me, you ask. You do not manufacture consent and call it romance. The candle flame stretched toward the ceiling. For one dangerous instant, her disappointment became heat strong enough to warp the silverware. Then she closed her eyes, breathed slowly, and extinguished the flame. "And if I refuse?" she whispered. "I leave now. I will still be grateful that you rescued me from the rain, but gratitude does not make me property." She opened her eyes. "I will remove them." Tonight, she agreed. "But you cannot leave. The Arden people are still searching." "Then show me what you know, and let me decide whether staying is sensible." Maren sat across from me. For the first time since we met as children, she stopped pretending to be merely wealthy, merely fragile, or merely amused. She told me the truth. The Lockwoods were not simply rich. They were one of 4 families that had guarded Crownspire since the city was a cluster of stone towers around an observatory. The old stories called them wardens. The modern world called them executives, celebrities, diplomats, and occasionally criminals with excellent attorneys. Each family carried an inherited anomaly. Lockwoods produced heat without fuel and could convert strong emotion into physical force. The Ardens could bend attention, hide in shadow, and remember a person's scent for years. The Quinn line shaped sound so precisely that a trained voice could soothe a riot or stop a heart. The Rooks drew heat out of matter, creating frost and, in rare cases, storms. "That is impossible," I said. Maren placed her palm above the candle. A blue flame rose from her skin and formed a tiny bird. It crossed the table, landed on my empty teacup, and disappeared without leaving soot. "My standards for impossible have changed," I admitted. According to Maren, the powers became unstable every few generations. One person, known in family records as a lodestar, could calm all 4 bloodlines. My father had been the last one. So Dad spent his youth surrounded by 4 powerful women whose emotions affected the weather. That is the polite version. And Maren Arden was one of them, the most persistent. I looked toward the rain. Bros really do inherit their father's unpaid bills. Maren failed to smile. The records say a lodestar's child may inherit the same resonance. If you did, every unbalanced heir in the 4 families would feel calmer near you. Distance would become painful. Attachment could become obsession. You are saying your feelings might be supernatural? Her chair scraped back. No. Heat rolled over the table. I loved you before my ability awakened, she said. Whatever your presence does, it did not make me preserve your drawings or wait outside your jobs in winter. The power sharpens what is there. It does not invent a heart. Then it also does not excuse what the heart chooses. She flinched but nodded. I asked for every record she possessed. Maren opened a hidden panel behind the bookcase and produced a case of copied ledgers, old photographs, and reports about my father. One photograph showed Rowan at 19 beside 4 young women. Maren stood closest, gripping his sleeve. A woman with pale eyes and a winter cloak watched him from the other side. Behind them, a singer from the Quinn family leaned against his shoulder. The last woman had Maren's eyes. My Aunt Elowen, Maren said. She vanished during the failed convergence 20 years ago. 3 people died. Part of the old observatory collapsed, and Rowan left Crownspire. The families buried the incident. Dad told me he dropped out because tuition was expensive. He lies with impressive efficiency. Maren's documents also contained a recent memo from a group called the Meridian Directorate. It ordered all 4 houses to locate Rowan and secure the emergent successor before uncontrolled contact. My name was blacked out, but the photograph attached to the memo came from my university application. Who leads the directorate? I asked. Provost Evander Krail. Officially, he coordinates research grants and public safety. Unofficially, he knows more about the bloodlines than anyone alive. He helped cover up the observatory disaster. And you plan to keep me in a monitored bedroom until this passed? I plan to move with you to Crownspire, put guards around the university, and eliminate every threat before you noticed. That is somehow worse when you say it plainly. I am trying honesty. Keep practicing. We spent the next hour removing cameras. There were 17. I made Maren place them on the table herself. She looked increasingly embarrassed as the pile grew. 1 in a flower pot? I asked. The angle was excellent. 2 in the bathroom? Redundancy is important. 1 inside the stuffed rabbit? He volunteered. By the time we finished, I had administrator access to the entire system, and Maren had agreed, in writing, to my boundaries. I also agreed to remain for the night because armed shadow-bending heirs changed the risk calculation. Separate rooms, I said. The guest wing is being renovated. I checked. The guest wing was perfectly usable. Maren sighed. Fine. I wanted you close. You may ask. Will you sleep in my room? No. She pressed a hand to her chest as if I had fired an arrow into it. This honesty system is cruel. It is working exactly as designed. I chose a guest room, wedged a chair beneath the handle, and tried to sleep. At 2 in the morning, a soft knock woke me. Maren stood in the hall, pale and shaking. Rain had soaked her hair again. She had gone outside to order her security team away from my window and had returned feverish. You are burning up, I said when I touched her forehead. That usually sounds romantic in novels. In real life, it means medicine and water. I took her to a room, found the first aid cabinet, and read the labels. Lockwood fevers were dangerous because their bodies could not release excess heat. The instructions recommended cold compresses and emotional calm. Maren caught my wrist. Stay. I am getting water. You came back? I have not left. Her confusion told me she was already delirious. I returned with a basin, medication, and a thermometer. She tried to pull me onto the mattress. I placed a chair beside it instead. You can hold my hand, I said. Nothing else while you are ill. She clung to my fingers. I was certain you would disappear once you knew. I considered it. That is not comforting. You frightened me. You also told the truth when it mattered, and respected the line after I drew it. Trust is not repaired in one evening, but it can be repaired. Her eyes filled. Do I still have a chance? When you are healthy, ask me over coffee. Is that a yes? That is a fever-safe answer. She laughed weakly and finally swallowed the medicine. I remained awake until her temperature fell. Once, near dawn, she pulled my hand against her cheek and whispered that she had dreamed about living with me for so long that waking alone felt like being evicted from her own future. It was the kind of line that could make a man forget 17 cameras. I did not forget them. I also did not pretend her vulnerability meant nothing. At sunrise, an Arden car stopped outside our old apartment. Vesper sat in the back seat with my blue scarf around her neck. On her lap rested a sealed box containing every object her people had taken from my room. She had ordered them cleaned, catalogued, and preserved. The guard across from her kept his gaze fixed on the floor. You let him walk past you, Vesper said. We believed he was a courier, Lady Vesper. He was wearing his own uniform. Yes. You had a current photograph. The guard swallowed. The lighting was poor. Vesper smiled. Shadows climbed his sleeves. If you lie again, I will teach you how dark a closed mouth can become. Morel entered the car before the lesson continued. Unlike her daughter, she seemed amused. Elias escaped 6 trained men using soup, she said. Rowan did something similar with a tray of dumplings when we were 20. The resemblance is charming. Vesper tightened her hold on the box. You promised he would be here. He was. Your impatience let him see us. Your men failed. Our men failed. Morel leaned closer. Do not confuse affection with authority, little star. Elias is important to every house, not merely to you. The temperature inside the car seemed to fall despite the absence of Rook blood. He wrote to me, Vesper said. For 8 years. You intercepted the letters. Morel's smile thinned. He is my brother. Not by blood, and not by law after the guardianship ended.
You use that title because it makes your hunger sound innocent. Vesper's pupils widened until almost no silver remained. Morel laughed softly.
There you are.
The driver concentrated on becoming invisible. Vesper turned toward the wet city. Even with every official camera under Arden control, finding me would take time. My face had vanished from the municipal network 19 minutes after I called Maren. That was a Lockwood signature.
Maren has him, she said.
Likely.
Then why are we sitting here? Because a frightened lodestar runs. A protected one investigates.
Crownspire University opens next week, and Rowan has trained his son to pursue unanswered questions.
Morel tapped the antique compass in her hand. He will come to us. If Maren touches him, she already has.
The car windows darkened as every shadow in the compartment moved toward Vesper.
Morel's smile returned. Patience, little star. Obsession without patience is merely noise.
Back at the reservoir house, I woke with my head resting against Maren's mattress and her fingers locked around mine. My phone displayed 36 missed calls from unknown numbers. Most came from Crownspire. One included a voice message. I put in an earbud before playing it. For several seconds, there was only breathing. Then Vesper spoke.
Brother, I know you saw me. I know you remember. Mother told me you were hidden for my safety, but that was another lie. I found your letters last year. I read all 112 in one night. Her voice trembled. Please come to Crownspire. I will not hurt you. I will only make certain no one separates us again. If you refuse, I will still find you. I am telling you honestly, because you always hated surprises.
The message ended. I saved it with the directorate files. Maren opened her eyes.
Who was that?
Vesper Arden. Her fever-soft expression disappeared.
Delete it.
Evidence.
Poison.
She may know where Dad went. She wants to put you in a locked room and call it a reunion.
You had 17 cameras.
Maren pulled the blanket over her face.
I deserved that, she said from beneath it. We ate breakfast after her fever broke.
Maren asked me to move with her to a villa near Crownspire University. This time, she showed me the ownership documents, the actual cost, and the security plan. Her parents owned the property. They were willing to let us use it in exchange for maintenance, but I insisted on paying a modest monthly amount once I found work.
You can call it symbolic rent, she said.
I call it a contract.
Can the contract include one dinner together each night?
If schedules permit.
Morning coffee?
Probably.
One hug upon safe return?
Requested at the time. She placed both hands on the table.
Coffee, then. I am healthy. May I ask the question you postponed?
I knew exactly which one.
Go ahead. Will you consider dating me?
Yes, I said.
Consideration is not exclusivity, and it is not forgiveness for future crimes. We go slowly. You show me the real Maren, including the parts you think I will dislike.
She stared as though I had opened a door she had been throwing herself against for years.
You said yes. To a chance.
She vaulted across the table. I caught her shoulders before she reached my neck.
Ask. May I hug you?
Yes. Maren wrapped herself around me so tightly that the chair creaked. Heat surged through the room, gentle this time, turning every rain droplet on the windows into golden steam.
Less pressure, I managed.
I am working on several problems at once. We left for Crownspire that afternoon. I carried one bag. Maren brought 6 suitcases, a locked weapons case she claimed contained kitchen equipment, and a folder labeled Elias Safety Options. I opened it in the car. Option 1 involved a biometric ankle bracelet. Option 2 involved placing guards in my classes disguised as students. Option 3 was titled Voluntary Domestic Containment and included a diagram of a very comfortable cell. I looked at her. She took the folder, tore the pages in half, and handed the pieces to the driver. Old plans, she said. The ink is still wet. Personal growth can happen quickly. Crownspire rose from the plain in terraces of glass and gray stone. The old observatory occupied the highest hill, its copper dome visible between skyscrapers. 4 corporate towers surrounded it at equal distances, each owned by one warden family. It was less a city plan than a diagram of a trap. Our villa stood 10 minutes from campus behind a row of plane trees. I checked every room before unpacking. Maren followed with a box, collecting devices she had installed before our agreement. There are only 6, she said defensively. You are learning restraint. Praise me more. There should be 0. Cruel. The final device was sewn into a decorative cushion on my bed. I made her remove the entire cushion. We had barely finished when a motorcycle roared into the driveway. My cousin Tamsin removed her helmet and stared at the villa. I heard you were homeless, she said. Apparently homelessness has improved since I was in college. Tamsin was 5 years older than me, a mechanical engineer by training and a professional investigator by temperament. As children, she had stolen my desserts, defeated me in every wrestling match, and threatened anyone else who tried the same. She hugged me, inspected my face, then looked at Maren. You, she said. Me, Maren replied. The 2 women smiled with the warmth of diplomats discussing a border dispute. I showed Tamsin the blood-stained receipt and asked her to test it. I also gave her the photograph of the Arden license plate and copies of the directorate memo. You have been in Crownspire for 12 minutes, she said. How are you already investigating a secret order? Dad raised me efficiently. Your father once vanished from a wedding by climbing into a laundry truck. This does sound hereditary. What wedding? Tamsin looked away. Not important. Maren became intensely interested. Whose wedding? Definitely not his own. Probably. I added the question to my growing list. Tamsin agreed to run the blood sample and search private transport records. In exchange, she demanded the guest room for the night and breakfast in the morning. I agreed. Maren volunteered the smallest room beside the boiler. The west guest room is larger, I said. It is also farther from your room. Exactly. Maren narrowed her eyes at Tamsin. Fine. At dinner, I explained the 4 bloodlines. Tamsin listened without interrupting, then pointed her fork at Maren. Show me fire. Maren lit the candle. Tamsin set down the fork. I owe several conspiracy forums an apology. Afterward, I announced that I was going out to look for work. No, Maren said. That was information, not a vote. People are hunting you, which is why I need my own income, transport, and contacts. Dependence would make me easier to control. I can give you all 3. You just illustrated my point. Tamsin covered a laugh with her glass. Maren folded her arms. At least take security. 1 person, visible, no tracking. I choose them. We compromised on Tamsin following me by motorcycle. That lasted until her laboratory called with an urgent job and she had to leave. I continued alone, visiting restaurants, warehouses, and late-night shops. Every manager gave me some version of the same answer. They had filled the position minutes before I arrived. At the 6th business, the owner looked genuinely apologetic. A Lockwood representative offered to cover our staffing costs for the year, he said. The condition was that we not employ you. I thanked him, stepped outside, and called Maren. Did you purchase the local job market? Silence. Maren. Only the unsafe portion. Undo it. Those jobs pay terribly. Undo it tonight, or the dating consideration ends. Her breath caught. That is emotional blackmail. No. It is a consequence attached to a boundary you already understood. I will fix it. Thank you. I ended the call before irritation became cruelty. Maren's control came from fear, but fear did not get to run our lives. My phone rang again almost immediately. This time, Tamsin sounded serious. The blood on your windowsill is Rowan's. More importantly, it contains a sedative used only at Meridian medical facilities. Dad was taken, or treated there. I found a private ambulance leaving Northbridge 40 minutes before you arrived home. It crossed into Crownspire before dawn. Destination? The old university hospital. It has been closed for 8 years. I looked up the hill. Beyond the crowded streets, the observatory dome reflected the last red light of sunset. Then tomorrow, I said, I am visiting a hospital. I never reached it. At dawn, Crownspire Central Station became a wall of people. Hundreds of fans filled the avenue outside the Grand Lyric Theater, holding silver banners and paper stars. Their chants rolled between the buildings. Aster Quinn was rehearsing there for a charity concert. I knew more about her than any reasonable person should know about a stranger. During my final year of school, I worked nights and listened to a tiny anonymous audio channel called After Midnight. The host used the name Finch. She sang unfinished melodies, complained about stage fright, and spoke to an audience of perhaps 12 people. I sent encouragement after every broadcast. When trolls mocked her voice, I moderated the chat. When she said she wanted to quit, I told her that fear meant the performance mattered. Months later, Finch disappeared, and Aster Quinn released a song built around one of those unfinished melodies.
I guess they were the same person. Then Finch sent me 400 messages in one night, asking for my real name, address, school, favorite food, blood type, and whether I believed two souls could be married without meeting. I blocked the account. It seemed sensible at the time. Outside the theater, security had closed the shortest route to the old hospital. I circled the building and found a narrow service lane. A young woman stood beneath the fire escape wearing a cap, dark glasses, and a scarf large enough to conceal a small dog. She pointed toward the lowest ladder. "Could you help me reach that?" "No." She blinked. "I can pay." Still no. The entrance is controlled for a reason. What if I belong inside? Then you have a credential. Her shoulders slumped. My manager took it. The voice was unmistakable. Finch had once whispered into my earphones for 3 hours while I stocked a frozen food aisle. "Aster," I said. The scarf stopped moving. "Your disguise is good. Your voice is not." She slowly lowered her glasses. Violet eyes fixed on me. First wary, then astonished. Her power arrived as pressure in the air, a note too low to hear but strong enough to feel in my ribs. "You recognized me. I listened to you before half the city knew your name." Her hand closed around my sleeve. "Say that again." The command slipped beneath my thoughts. My mouth opened without permission. I bit the inside of my cheek. Pain broke the rhythm. "Do not use your voice on me." Aster released my sleeve. Shock crossed her face. People did not resist her often. "I'm sorry," she said. "I did not mean—" "You meant to make me answer. Whether you planned harm is a separate question." She studied my face. Recognition spread slowly, terrifyingly. "Northwind," she whispered. That had been my username. I stepped back. Her eyes filled with tears. "It is you." "Keep your voice level." "You vanished."
I blocked you after you requested my dental records. I wanted to know everything. That was the problem.
Aster pulled the scarf down. Without stage makeup, she looked younger and more exhausted than the woman on the billboards. A bruise circled one wrist where a manager had apparently grabbed her. "I searched for you," she said. "I hired investigators. I bought the platform that hosted the channel. The account data had been erased. I thought you hated my real voice." "I disliked the interrogation." "I can be better." She reached toward me, stopped herself, and folded her hands together. "May I touch your sleeve?" The question surprised me. "Why?" "To prove you are not another stress hallucination." 2 fingers. Sleeve only. She touched the fabric near my elbow. A tremor ran through her entire body. The low pressure in the alley eased. "It is quiet," she murmured. "What is?" "Everything." She explained that every voice left an echo in her mind. Crowds were agony. Music was worse. Years ago, my replies during the broadcasts had somehow silenced the noise. Once I blocked her, the echoes returned stronger. Becoming famous gave her money and reach, but no peace. That matched Maren's description of a lodestar. My presence steadied Aster's inherited ability. It did not explain why she had tried to obtain my blood type. "I am going to the old hospital," I said. "My father may be held there. If you know anything about the directorate, now is the time." Aster's face changed. "Evander Krail owns my contract." "Owns?" "The Quinn trustees signed control of my performances to a Meridian subsidiary when I was 16. Krail decides where I appear, what I sing, and which medical evaluations I receive. Last week, he made me record a sustained tone in the hospital basement. For what purpose? He said it was acoustic research. I heard someone behind the wall. A man. He was trying to say a name. "Rowan?" She nodded.
I started toward the street. Aster caught my arm. This time, she used no power. Do not go alone. There are Meridian listeners at every entrance. They can turn balance against you with a word. Can you get us inside? Yes. Then we work together. No commands, no secret tracking, no kidnapping. Her gaze shifted. Aster, I had a car prepared, she confessed. It has blankets, food, reinforced locks, and a small recording studio. I imagined taking you somewhere quiet until you forgave me. Cancel the car. May I keep the food? Food is not the issue. She sent one message. A white van at the end of the lane drove away. Cancelled, she said miserably. We entered the theater through a backstage door. Aster placed a visitor badge around my neck and told staff I was an audio technician. I expected her manager to challenge us, but one soft sentence from her made him forget why he had approached. You do that often, I said. Only when necessary. Everyone defines necessary in their own favor. She glanced at me. You sound like the messages you used to send. I hope my punctuation is better in person. Her smile appeared for the first time. It was small and startlingly sincere. A service tunnel connected the theater to the abandoned hospital. Meridian had installed new locks behind condemned building signs. Aster sang 3 precise notes, and the electronic sensor blinked green. We descended into corridors that smelled of dust, disinfectant, and cold metal. The basement rooms were empty. Recent wheel marks led to an elevator with no call button. I found a camera above us and covered its lens while Aster searched a control panel. Someone moved him, she said. This system logs only code names. Subject Lantern transferred to Orison at 0420. St. Orison Hotel. The location from my opening nightmare was now part of the case. When? Tomorrow morning. There is a Meridian conference at the hotel. The transfer is listed as a live demonstration. I photographed the screen. A door slammed above us. Aster grabbed my hand and pulled me into a supply room. 5 people entered the corridor. Their footsteps stopped outside. Subject Echo made contact, a man said. Krail wants both secured. Subject Echo was probably me. Aster's fingers tightened. The room filled with a thin, vibrating tone. Metal shelves shivered. Her fear was activating her voice without conscious control. I pressed 2 fingers to her wrist. Breathe with me. She looked at me. 4 in, hold 2, 6 out. The vibration softened. The door handle turned. I lifted a fire extinguisher. When the first listener entered, I discharged foam into his face, yanked him forward, and took the shock baton from his belt. Aster spoke 1 word to the second. Sleep. He folded gently to the floor. The other 3 wore sound-dampening earpieces. I struck the lights, forcing them to navigate by muzzle lamps. Aster found the hospital intercom and released a high note through every ceiling speaker. Glass shattered. The listeners lost balance. I drove the baton into the nearest one's knee, took his keycard, and opened the emergency stairwell. We ran. Outside, afternoon traffic filled the avenue. I expected pursuit. Instead, every giant screen on the theater changed to Aster's live camera feed. Her manager had realized she was missing and activated a public search. Fans began pointing. There she is! Aster froze. Hundreds of people turned toward us. Their excitement struck her senses like a physical wave. She clutched her ears. A sound began rising in her throat, powerful enough to injure the crowd. I stepped in front of her and took her face between my hands. Look at me. Her pupils struggled to focus. You are not trapped. We need to reach the service car across the street. Can you walk? If you let go, they will take you. I will keep one hand on your shoulder. You control your voice. We leave together. She nodded. We crossed through the crowd while Aster smiled and waved as though this were a planned appearance. I kept my hand where she could feel it. Security surrounded us and guided us into a black sedan. The moment the doors closed, the locks engaged. Aster's manager sat opposite us. He held a syringe. Provost Krail asked for discretion, he said. I slammed my heel into his wrist before he finished. The syringe spun away. Aster released 1 sharp syllable, and the driver braked hard. I caught the manager by his tie, used it to pin him against the seat, and took his phone. Unlock the doors. He smiled through clenched teeth. You do not understand what she is without treatment. I understand that you carry a sedative and answer to the man holding my father. Aster belongs to Meridian. The glass partition cracked.
Say that again, Aster whispered. Her voice turned the air into a blade. Blood appeared beneath the manager's nose. I looked at her. Do not kill him. He would take you away. We need information, and I will not help you become what he says you are. The pressure receded. Aster shook violently, but she obeyed. I used the manager's thumb to unlock his phone and found the hotel transfer schedule. The courier delivery at 9 was part of the demonstration. A specific account had been created in my name that morning. The order would lure me through the staff entrance and confirm my identity through biometric timing. They expected me to apply for courier work, I said. Crail controls the vacancies near campus, the manager muttered. He has been shaping your path since your admission. Maren had interfered with jobs to keep me safe. Crail had created one to draw me in. Between protection and predation, apparently no one in Crownspire believed I should choose my own employment. I opened the moving car door after Aster commanded the locks.
We jumped at a red light and ran into an underground shopping arcade. Aster followed me through a clothing store, traded her coat with a display mannequin, and emerged wearing a plain hoodie and mask. I texted Tamsin the hotel documents, then called Maren. She answered with, "Where are you, and why is the entire city broadcasting footage of you holding Aster Quinn's hand?" I found Dad's transfer record. You are with her. Focus. I am focusing on the woman touching you. St. Orison Hotel, tomorrow at 9. Meridian is using a delivery job as a trap. Dad is listed as subject lantern. There was a pause. Maren's voice became cold and efficient. Send everything. I will verify the architecture and internal security. No private army. We need proof before Crail moves him again. And the singer? I glanced at Aster. She stood close enough that our sleeves touched, watching me as if every breath required confirmation. She helped me. She also needs protection from Meridian. Bring her to the villa, Maren said. The invitation was so reasonable that I immediately distrusted it. Without weapons, I added. Define weapon. No bat, blade, firearm, poison, restraints, incendiary device, or object selected primarily to cause pain. You forgot rope. No rope. Fine. Aster tilted her head. Does that rule apply to me? Yes. She removed a wire garrote from beneath her sleeve and dropped it into a bin. I stared. My manager insisted, she said. Of course he did. We exited through the subway and took 3 different lines to shake surveillance. On the final train, Aster fell asleep against the window. Each time her head drifted toward my shoulder, she woke and apologized. On the 4th attempt, she asked, "May I?" Until our stop. She rested lightly against me. The constant tension left her face. For 10 quiet minutes, she looked like a tired young woman rather than a voice capable of breaking glass. My phone vibrated with a message from Maren. I see you. I looked around the train, found no camera she controlled, and typed back. If that means you are tracking me, our agreement is over. 3 dots appeared. Public news feed, she replied. Everyone sees you. I hate it. That was honest, at least. We reached the villa at dusk. Maren waited on the front steps in a fitted black coat. Her hands were empty. A ring of melted frost surrounded her shoes even though the evening was cool. Aster stopped at the gate. The 2 women assessed each other in silence. Welcome, Maren said finally. If you compel Elias with your voice, I will melt every recording you have ever made. If you put another tracker on him, Aster replied, I will teach your bones to resonate separately. Good, I said. Now that the threats are out, repeat them as boundaries without mentioning bodily harm. Neither moved. I waited. Maren exhaled. Do not influence his decisions. Aster lowered her gaze. Do not monitor him in private. Better. Inside. Tamsin had turned the dining room into an investigation center. Maps covered the table. She had identified 6 entrances to the St. Orison and 3 Meridian security teams posing as hotel staff. The delivery route entered through the loading dock, crossed the kitchen, and ended at the main lobby. Crail wants you visible, she said. The conference guests include representatives from all 4 warden families. He plans to demonstrate that you stabilize their heirs. By presenting me like a battery. A very disputed battery. Maren unfolded an architectural plan. We can intercept the ambulance in the underground garage. Aster shook her head. The patient will be moved before Elias arrives. Crail needs Rowan on stage to trigger the son's response. Then we enter early, I said. Tamsin handles service access.
Maren controls the fire system and cameras. Aster gets us past voice security. I locate Dad. You stay in the van, Maren said. I'm the only one who knows his signals and habits. You are the target, which means my movements determine the trap. I will not walk blindly into the lobby, but I will not sit in a padded room while other people rescue my father. Aster watched me with open admiration. Maren looked less pleased. Tamsin pointed at the schedule. There is another problem. Arden representatives arrive tonight. Morel and Vesper reserve the entire 17th floor. The doorbell rang. No one spoke. The camera above the gate showed a single silver-haired woman holding a blue scarf. Vesper looked directly into the lens.
Brother, her voice came through the speaker. I came alone because I knew you would punish anyone who threatened your friends. Please open the door before Mother sends people less patient than me. Maren's hands ignited. Aster inhaled for a command. I shut off the speaker and faced them. Both of you stay here. Absolutely not, they said together. Then stand 10 paces behind me and do not attack unless she does. If either of you ignores that, I walk away from all of you. The flames vanished. Aster closed her mouth. I opened the gate. Vesper stepped through and stopped exactly 10 paces away. Her gaze moved over me with painful intensity, checking every detail from the bandage on my wrist to the crease of my collar. You grew taller, she whispered. Most 11-year-olds do. I missed it. She held out the scarf. You gave this back to me the day they took me away. I kept it sealed until last night. Your people emptied my room. I made them return everything. You called 36 times. 34. Mother placed 2. At least she was precise. Why is Meridian holding my father? Vesper glanced toward Maren and Aster. Shadows curled beneath her coat. Come with me and I will tell you. Tell me here. They will hear. That is intentional. Her expression tightened. You trust them more than me. I trust information that survives witnesses. For a moment, I saw the lonely child who once waited outside my bedroom during thunderstorms. Then possession hardened her face. Crail believes Rowan concealed the Heart Archive, she said. It contains the original covenant that created the Lodestar bond. He thinks your blood can open it. Tomorrow's event is designed to make all 4 heirs react in public. Once he measures the resonance, he will take you below the hotel. Where is Dad now? Already beneath St. Orison. The ambulance record was false. Tamsin swore behind me. How do you know? I followed his scent through the service tunnels. Vesper took 1 step closer. I can lead you to him, but I cannot let you remain with Lockwood. Her house helped Crail 20 years ago. Maren's fire returned. Your mother delivered Rowan to the convergence chamber, and your aunt closed the door. Aster's voice sharpened. Both houses profited, while the Quinn heir lost her mind. The argument struck old wounds none of them had personally created. Power gathered around us. Shadows thickened. Heat shimmered. The iron gate began to hum. I stepped between them. Stop inheriting your family's excuses. The 3 fell silent. Crail benefits every time you blame one another. Dad remains captive while you compare ancestral crimes. Vesper, if you want my trust, share the tunnel route. Maren, verify it. Aster, identify sonic locks. Nobody takes custody of me. Nobody attacks anyone in this yard. Vesper's eyes narrowed. You sound like Rowan. I hope he sounds like me after I rescue him. Her mouth twitched toward a smile. Then frost spread across the gate. Every leaf in the garden turned white at once. Vesper spun toward the street. Maren raised a wall of heat. Aster covered her ears. A young woman stood beyond the trees, wearing a pale traveling cloak. Snow circled her bare feet. Her dark hair was braided with pieces of ice that did not melt. Solenne Rook had arrived. She looked past all 3 women and met my eyes. Lodestar, she said. I have crossed 700 miles to collect you before the city burns. Get in line, Tamsin muttered. Solenne heard her from across the garden. There should not be a line. She lifted one hand. Frost sealed the gate, climbed the walls, and spread beneath our feet. Maren answered with a wave of heat. Steam burst upward, swallowing the garden in white fog. Vesper disappeared. Aster drew breath. Nobody move, I shouted. Naturally, everyone moved. Maren launched herself through the steam. Vesper emerged from Solenne's own shadow with a silver cord.
Aster released a note that bent the iron bars outward. Solenne stamped once, and a ring of ice locked all three women's ankles to the ground. I grabbed the garden hose, opened the valve, and sprayed the frozen path between them. "Elias!" Maren shouted. "Water is not helping!" "It is not for the ice." I pulled the emergency lever beside the electric gate. Current traveled through the wet metal with a loud crack. The pulse was not strong enough to injure anyone, but it disrupted the concentration behind the powers. Maren's flames collapsed. Vesper became visible. Aster's note broke into a cough. Solenne's ice fractured. Before they recovered, I stepped onto a stone bench and held up the phone displaying my father's transfer schedule. The next person who attacks becomes the reason Rowan stays in a cell. 4 pairs of eyes turned toward me. "Solenne, you get 1 minute to explain. If you attempt to freeze, carry, command, conceal, or otherwise relocate me, the conversation ends." She lowered her hand. Snow continued falling, but more gently. "The winter seal beneath Crownspire is breaking," she said. "When the 4 warden heirs approach a new lodestar without completing a balancing rite, their gifts amplify one another. Lockwood heat will feed Quinn vibration. Arden shadow will hide the rupture. Rook cold will force the pressure underground. The city will burn above and freeze below." That sounds physically ambitious. Your father prevented it 20 years ago. He divided the Covenant key and carried one piece away. Krail has gathered the other pieces. He needs your blood to combine them. Vesper stared. "The Ardens were told the Rooks destroyed their fragment. We hid it." Solenne's expression remained calm. "Last month, Meridian soldiers raided our sanctuary. My grandmother died protecting the vault. I followed the stolen fragment here." She opened her cloak. A short, curved blade hung at her side, along with a leather pouch and a cracked compass. My father's compass. I crossed the frozen ground before anyone stopped me. "Where did you get that?" "Rowan gave it to a Rook messenger 3 nights ago. The messenger reached our border with a fatal wound. His last instruction was to place it in your hand." Solenne offered the compass. I examined the brass case. My father had carved 3 small marks beside north. When I pressed them in order, the back opened, revealing a strip of paper. "Trust no inherited story. B17. The 4 must choose, not be bound." That sounded like him. "Why collect me?" I asked. "Because you are safer in the White Reach. I can keep the others away until the winter seal is repaired." "By force?" Solenne hesitated. "If persuasion fails. Then your offer is a kidnapping with better scenery. You would have books, warm food, and a room facing the northern lights. Decor does not change the lock." Aster made a small, approving sound. Maren gave her a look. Solenne studied me as though I were a puzzle that had contradicted the answer key. "Rowan always fled. I am not Rowan." The words settled across the garden. Something struck the outer wall. The explosion lifted snow and stone into the air. Meridian listeners poured through the breach wearing gray armor and sound-dampening helmets. A second team dropped from the roof. They had waited for our powers to expose the villa. "Take the successor alive," their commander ordered. "The heirs are expendable." Maren stepped in front of me. I pulled her back. "Together." They prepared for each of you separately. Another pulse grenade landed near the gate. I kicked it into the ornamental pond before it detonated. The blast emptied half the water over the first assault team. "Solenne, freeze the water, not the people."
Ice locked 6 soldiers to the pavement up to their knees. "Maren, heat their helmet seals." The soldiers tore off their equipment before the adhesive scorched them. "Aster, now!" She spoke a single command to the exposed ears. "Down!" 6 bodies hit the ground. Vesper had already vanished. I saw only the result. Weapons disappearing into patches of darkness, straps knotting themselves, soldiers dragged backward by their own shadows. Tamsin ran inside and returned with a compact drone. It lifted above the roof, mapped the remaining attackers, and projected their positions onto my phone. 3 on the east balcony, she called. 2 behind the garage, sniper in the cedar. Maren sent a narrow line of heat through the air. The sniper's scope cracked. Solenne raised an ice wall as he fired. The commander charged me with a baton designed to disrupt resonance. I moved aside, caught his wrist, and used his momentum to send him across the wet stones. He recovered quickly. Too quickly. The baton touched my shoulder. Every sound vanished. My muscles stopped responding. I remained conscious while my body folded. The commander seized my collar. 4 powers struck him at once. Heat launched him backward. Frost trapped his boots. A sound wave shattered his visor. His shadow wrapped around his throat and pinned him to the wall. The combined force also split the garden from end to end. Blue light rose through the crack. Solenne went pale. The seal. The villa had been built directly over one of Crownspire's old energy channels. Our conflict was feeding it. I forced my numb hand toward the commander's baton, switched its polarity, and pressed it against the glowing stone. The device discharged with a shriek. The blue light receded. Feeling returned to my fingers. "Stop using full force," I said through clenched teeth. "Krail wants your powers together." The remaining soldiers retreated. Vesper could have pursued them. Instead, she returned to my side and checked the bruise on my shoulder. "He touched you," she said. "He is unconscious. Leave him that way." Her shadow loosened from the commander's neck. Maren looked at the cracked garden. "The villa is compromised." "So is the hotel plan," Tamsin said. "Meridian knows all 4 heirs have made contact." "Then Krail may move Rowan," Aster whispered. I searched the commander's armor and found a hotel access card, a folded instruction sheet, and a small vial labeled Echo Catalyst. The instructions were explicit. If I did not arrive voluntarily by 9, Meridian would inject Subject Lantern with the catalyst and broadcast his resonance across Crownspire. They did not merely have Dad. They had turned his life into a deadline. "We proceed," I said. Maren objected first. "The trap is confirmed. So is the hostage. Krail expects you. He expects an isolated courier following a route. He does not expect 5 people who finally know what he is attempting." Solenne frowned. 5? "Tamsin is coming." My cousin looked delighted. "I knew we were related." "You are not going," 4 voices said to her. Tamsin folded her arms. "I am the only person here without an overwhelming urge to chain Elias to tasteful furniture. That makes me operationally essential." Nobody had a strong reply. We restrained the Meridian team with their own equipment and anonymously alerted the ordinary police to armed trespassers. Then we moved to a Lockwood safe apartment above a closed bakery. It had 1 entrance, no family insignia, and enough flour downstairs to reveal invisible footprints. I placed the 4 heirs around a square table. "We need rules before tomorrow." Vesper sat nearest to me. Maren moved her chair closer. Aster shifted into the remaining space. Solenne watched all 3 with quiet contempt and then pulled her chair to my other side. Tamsin took a photograph. "For evidence," she said. "Delete that," I told her. "For the family album." "Especially delete it." I wrote the rules on the back of a flour invoice. No one would use a power on another member of the group without an immediate defensive need. No one would remove me from a location without my agreement. No one would conceal evidence, contact Krail, or pursue family revenge during the operation. Every threat would be reported. Every plan would have an exit route. "And no romantic competition until Rowan is safe," I added. Maren looked personally wounded. Aster raised a tentative hand. "What qualifies as competition?" "Trying to make another person jealous, sabotaging her role, touching me to mark territory." Vesper lowered the hand she had placed on my sleeve. "May we express sincere affection?" Aster asked. "At an appropriate time, after asking." Solenne's brows drew together. "I have no romantic intention." The others looked at her. She remained expressionless for 3 seconds. Then frost formed on her cup. "I only require his permanent residence in my sanctuary, exclusive emotional loyalty, and participation in the Rook continuation rite." Tamsin coughed into her fist. "Completely non-romantic." Solenne looked genuinely confused. "The rite involves marriage, but that is administrative." "Put down the pen," I said when she reached for the rule sheet. We analyzed the hotel until after midnight. St. Orison had been built above a branch of the old observatory tunnels. Krail planned to present Rowan in the ballroom while representatives of the 4 families watched. The courier route would bring me within range. Aster's scheduled opening performance would activate the Quinn fragment. Maren's invitation placed the Lockwood fragment in the room. Morel carried the Arden piece as a ceremonial pendant.
Solenne had tracked the Rook fragment to a meridian vault beneath the lobby.
Krail had assembled every component under one roof. "He expects our rivalry to provide the emotional surge," Maren said.
"Then we deny him the surge," I replied. "We act boring."
Aster looked alarmed. "I am not sure any of us can do that."
"You will learn." At 2, we arranged watches. Tamsin and I took the first shift. The 4 heirs were assigned separate rooms. At 3, I found Vesper crouched outside my door.
"I heard breathing in the corridor," she said. "It was yours."
Then I correctly identified it. "Return to your room." She held out the blue scarf.
"He never asked why your letters stopped."
I sat on the top stair, leaving space between us. "Your mother intercepted them."
"At first. Later, I stopped answering."
"Why?"
"Every letter made me want to leave."
"Mother said if I ran to you, Meridian would discover Rowan's location and kill him."
I believed her.
Vesper twisted the scarf around her fingers.
"When I learned she lied, I began imagining every year we lost. In those fantasies, I found you, locked the door, and made time stop. Time does not owe us a refund."
"I know."
"Do you? You arrived with guards and restraints." Vesper's eyes lowered. "I did not know whether you would come willingly." "You knew I would not."
"Yes."
The honesty hurt more than an excuse. "I remember the day they took you," I said. "You bit a guard until he bled. I promised I would find you. I failed. You were 11, and you were 10. Neither of us caused the separation. If we build anything now, it cannot be a prison made from childhood grief." Vesper looked at me for a long time. "May I sit closer?"
"A little."
She moved until our shoulders nearly touched, then stopped. We stayed that way in silence. "I do not know what to call what I feel," she whispered. "Brother is too small. Love is too common. Hunger sounds ugly, but it is true. Then do not name it tonight."
"Learn whether you care about the person I became, not only the boy you lost." Vesper's hand opened. The blue scarf lay between us. "Will you wear it tomorrow?"
"It could identify me."
"Please."
"Inside my jacket." That was enough to make her smile. At 4, Aster tried to enter my dream by singing through the ventilation shaft. I recognized the melody and knocked on the pipe. The song stopped. "Sorry," she called faintly from the next room. At 5, Solenne froze my window and attempted to slide a formal sanctuary contract beneath the door. The contract included a clause granting the Rooks authority to relocate me while unconscious. I crossed it out, wrote "absolutely not" in large letters, and sent it back. At 6, Maren arrived with breakfast and a key to handcuffs she claimed not to possess. "Why are you giving me this?" "To demonstrate trust." "Where are the handcuffs?" "Somewhere secure." "Bring them." She returned with 3 pairs.
By 7, Tamsin had renamed the operation "Every Morning, Another Kidnapping Proposal." I refused to laugh, which made her enjoy it more. At 8, we separated. Aster entered St. Orison through the main doors with her performance staff. Maren attended the conference as the Lockwood representative. Vesper joined Morel on the 17th floor. Solenne concealed herself in a refrigerated supply truck. Tamsin posed as a kitchen repair contractor. I wore a courier uniform and carried the Meridian order. The app displayed a delivery deadline of 9 o'clock. I reached the hotel loading dock at 8:47. The guard scanned the order and waved me through. My earbud carried Tamsin's voice. "Kitchen clear, elevator 2 disabled, Aster is in position." Maren spoke next. "Ballroom security has doubled, Rowan is not visible." "Vesper?" I asked. Static answered. Then her whisper emerged. "Mother knows. She took my phone. I am using the room intercom." "Can you reach the service stairs?" "Yes, but Morel is wearing the Arden fragment. If I leave, she joins Krail in the ballroom. Do not fight her alone." "You still worry about me?" "Not the time. It is never the time." The line died. I crossed the kitchen with the paper bag. Every clock displayed a slightly different time. Meridian wanted me dependent on the app. At 8:56, the route changed, directing me away from the lobby and toward a private reception room. "They altered the destination," I said. Tamsin checked the plan. "That room sits directly over the underground vault." "Rook fragment," Solenne said. "I feel it." The bag grew warm in my hand. I opened it beneath a prep counter. Instead of food, it contained a glass vial and a compact injector.
The order itself carried my supposed blood sample. Krail did not need to catch me to begin. He needed me to deliver the catalyst into the resonance field.
I replaced the vial with a container of beet dressing from the kitchen and placed the real one inside a lead-lined oven. At 8:59:59, I set the bag on the reception counter. At 9, the doors locked. At 9 o'clock. 1. The lobby lights turned red. Maren entered from the east corridor because she saw the doors seal. Aster descended in the elevator after hearing my heartbeat change through the sound system. Vesper dropped from the balcony, having escaped her mother's suite. Solenne forced her way through the revolving door because the Rook fragment activated beneath us. 4 women came from 4 directions, each certain the others had triggered the trap. "Mine," Maren said, reaching me first. "You agreed not to claim him," Aster snapped. "Brother comes with me," Vesper said. "The seal is opening," Solenne warned. "I will collect the lodestar." The hotel staff fled. Frost covered the windows. Aster's frightened hum weakened my legs. Maren locked the exits to keep Meridian from removing me. Vesper ordered the Arden guards outside to prepare an armored van. Solenne lowered the temperature to slow whatever moved beneath the floor. The opening nightmare had arrived exactly as promised. I took hold of a brass luggage cart and rammed it into the reception desk. The impact knocked the hidden injector assembly out from beneath the counter. "Before anyone drags me anywhere," I said, "look at the trap." They looked. A timer on the injector reached 0. It fired beet dressing into the ceiling. For one stunned second, red droplets rained over the lobby. "That is salad sauce," I said. "Krail expected you to fight over me while the real catalyst activated. We are not giving him the performance." The ceiling exploded. A steel platform descended through dust and chandeliers. Rowan Mercer stood upon it in hospital clothes, wrists bound to a copper frame. Evander Krail stood behind him with one hand on a control lever. My father raised his head. "Elias," he said hoarsely, "you were specifically told not to let 4 of them gather. Your message cut off after 4. That feels like an important technical failure." Even captive and drugged, he sounded annoyingly like himself. Krail smiled down at the 5 of us. "The successor has arrived," he announced. "Let the demonstration begin." The ballroom doors opened above the lobby. Family delegates crowded the railing, protected by transparent shields. Cameras unfolded from the walls. Krail had not arranged a private experiment. He had arranged an auction. Rowan's copper frame began to hum. Maren's hand found mine. Aster moved to my other side. Vesper and Solenne closed the remaining space until the 5 of us formed a circle. "Separate!" Rowan shouted. "The frame is measuring the field." We stepped apart. Krail looked mildly disappointed. "Your father spent 20 years teaching you suspicion. Did he ever explain why?" "He barely explained laundry. Because the truth exposes him as a coward." Krail touched a control pad. "Rowan could have stabilized the 4 houses permanently. Instead, he rejected the covenant and allowed their heirs to suffer." Images appeared on the lobby screens. Young Maren Arden screamed inside a shadow-filled chamber. A Quinn singer collapsed while glass burst around her. Elias Lockwood burned through metal restraints. A Rook woman stood frozen beneath a shell of ice. In the center of every image, my father struggled against the same copper frame. "You did that to them," I said. "I attempted to prevent civil war by strapping 5 teenagers to a machine." "History is rarely comfortable." Krail raised a small crystal shard. The Lockwood fragment around Maren's neck glowed in response. Aster clutched the silver pin on her dress. Beneath the lobby, the Rook piece sent cracks through the marble. On the balcony, Maren Arden appeared wearing a black pendant. Vesper looked up. "Mother, take it off." Maren rested both hands in the railing. "I have waited 20 years to finish this." Rowan's face tightened. "Maren, he cannot restore what we lost." "You do not know that." "Elias is dead." Maren staggered. Her aunt's fate had never been confirmed. Maren had used the uncertainty to keep Lockwood's support for a second convergence. "She died sealing the chamber after I broke the frame," Rowan said. "Krail erased the record because her sacrifice proved the covenant could be refused." Krail pressed the control pad again. Pain arched my father's body. Maren's grief became heat. The lobby carpet ignited beneath her feet. "Maren, look at me,"
I said. She could not. The Lockwood fragment had turned red against her chest. Aster's pin emitted a rising note. She covered it with both hands, but the frequency slipped into her voice. Vesper's shadow climbed the walls toward Morel.
Solenne sank to one knee as frost exploded from the vault below. Krail did not need the false catalyst. He had built emotional triggers into the demonstration.
"He is tuning you!" I shouted. "Remove the fragments!" Maren tore at the chain, but it had fused to her skin. Aster's pin would not release. Solenne carried no visible piece because hers remained below us. Vesper had no fragment, yet her connection to Morel pulled her shadow upward. I took the meridian baton from my jacket, reversed the polarity as I had in the garden, and struck Maren's necklace. The stone cracked. Heat knocked us both across the lobby. Maren landed against a pillar. The flames around her went out. "One," I said. Aster's frequency rose toward a pitch that could rupture arteries. I could not approach without losing balance. "Sing the first melody Finch ever shared," I told her. Her frightened eyes found mine. "Not Krail's note, yours." She changed keys.
The old, unfinished melody emerged, fragile at first, then stronger. It did not attack or command. It carried the memory of 12 anonymous listeners in a quiet chat, before contracts and stadiums. The silver pin cracked down the center. 2. Vesper had climbed halfway up the lobby wall through shadow. Morel extended a hand toward her. "Come, little star. Rowan chose himself over all of us. Elias will do the same unless we complete the bond." Vesper looked down at me. I did not tell her to choose me. That would have repeated Krail's trap with kinder words. "Your life," I said. "Your decision." Her face crumpled. The shadow beneath her split in 2 directions, one toward her mother and one toward the lobby floor. Then she released the wall. I caught her badly. We hit the carpet together, knocking the breath from both of us. Morel's pendant fractured. 3, Vesper gasped. Solenne's eyes had turned entirely white. Ice climbed her arms.
The rook fragment beneath us was not jewelry we could break. It was locked in a meridian vault.
"Tamsin," I said into the earbud, "can you reach the vault?" "Already there. The door has 6 locks and a warning about organ failure. Use the hotel heating main. That will flood the lower floor with boiling water. Not the main pipe, the pressure bypass. Superheat the lock housing, then have Solenne cool it." Tamsin understood. "Thermal shock." Maren crawled to a wall panel and forced heat into the building system. Tamsin opened the bypass. Steam hissed beneath our feet. "Solenne," I called. "The vault door, not the city." She pressed both palms to the floor. A sound like a mountain breaking rose from below. The vault housing shattered. Blue light burst through every seam in the lobby, then vanished as Tamsin enclosed the rook fragment in an insulated tool case. Solenne collapsed into my arms. 4, she whispered. The copper frame around Rowan lost power.
Krail's smile disappeared. I ran toward the platform. Meridian listeners emerged from the ballroom stairs, but the 4 heirs moved with me. Maren melted weapons without burning hands. Aster disrupted commands before they reached the guards. Vesper used shadow to reveal hidden attackers rather than conceal herself. Solenne froze the floor in narrow lines that directed people away from us. For the first time, their powers complemented one another without amplifying obsession. We reached the platform. I cut the first restraint from Rowan's wrist. "Can you stand? I can criticize your plan from a seated position." "Healthy enough." Krail pulled a lever behind the frame. The platform dropped. Maren caught the edge with one hand. I gripped Rowan's restraint. Aster seized my jacket. Vesper's shadow anchored Aster to a pillar. Solenne froze the sliding rails. For a moment, we held. Then Morel stepped from the balcony's shadow and cut Vesper's anchor. "Mother!" The platform plunged into darkness. I fell with Rowan and Krail. We landed on a moving freight lift beneath the hotel. Pain shot through my ankle. Above, 4 voices called my name as the shaft door closed. Krail recovered first. He struck me with the resonance baton. I blocked with my forearm, but the pulse numbed half my body. Rowan tore one wrist free, swung the copper restraint like a chain, and wrapped it around Krail's legs. "Run, Elias! We are doing this together." I rolled beneath the baton, drove my shoulder into Krail's waist, and pushed him against the lift controls. Rowan tightened the copper chain.
Crail dropped the baton. I picked it up. Release my father. Crail laughed. You think he is the prisoner? He opened his shirt collar. A web of black veins spread from a crystal embedded in his chest. The missing central piece of the Covenant key was inside him. I have carried your father's failure for 20 years, he said. Every unstable heir feeds it.
Every obsession, every uncontrolled gift, every family conflict.
The key made me more than human long before you were born. He pulled the copper chain apart with both hands. Rowan shoved me behind him. Crail struck once. My father flew into the lift wall and did not rise. I attacked Crail's embedded crystal with the baton. He caught my wrist, twisted until the weapon fell, and lifted me by the throat. You are not the hero of this story, he said. You are the mechanism. I drove my injured ankle into the emergency stop. The lift halted so violently that Crail lost his grip. We all hit the floor. I crawled to Rowan, cut his remaining restraint with the jagged edge of the copper frame, and searched the wall. There was no door, only a maintenance panel. 3 screws, Rowan breathed. Left side. I tore it open. Behind the wiring ran a narrow ventilation passage. You first, I said. Ankle. Still attached. Crail stood. Rowan entered the passage.
I followed and kicked the panel shut behind us. Crail's fist struck the metal hard enough to bend it inward. We crawled through darkness while the lift began moving again. At the first junction, Rowan turned right without hesitation. You know these tunnels. I spent 6 months hiding in them during college. From Crail? From several people. Crail was the least emotional. Your youth keeps becoming less respectable. I hoped parenthood would lower your expectations. We reached an access grate overlooking an underground railway platform. Meridian guards searched below. Rowan pointed toward a cable conduit leading uphill. B-17 connects to this line. Your mother designed the archive entrance. You could have told me she designed secret tunnels. She asked me not to involve you. She died when I was 6. Her instructions remained persuasive. The grate behind us burst inward. Crail entered the passage. I kicked out the platform grate.
Rowan and I dropped between 2 parked maintenance cars as alarms sounded. Guards converged from both ends.
Can you still run? He asked. Can you? Rude.
We ran. An empty service train rested 20 meters away. Rowan climbed into the driver's cabin and tore open the control box. I held the door, using a steel bar to keep the first guard back. You know how to drive this? Your mother did. That is not the same person. Marriage encourages educational theft. The engine engaged. The train rolled just as Crail reached the platform. He raised one hand. Black energy pulled the lights toward him and formed a spear. I threw the steel bar. It struck his wrist, altering the angle. The spear hit the rear car instead of the cabin. Metal peeled away as we accelerated into the tunnel. Rowan looked at me. Soup, improvised electricity, and now public transport. You really are my son. Please do not make that sound terminal. The train climbed toward the university.
I tried my phone, but the tunnel blocked service. My ankle swelled inside the shoe. Rowan's hands shook from the sedative. Did you let them take you? I asked. Partly. Anger rose again. Explain. Crail found us in Northbridge. If I fought at the apartment, you would have come home during it. I allowed his team to sedate me after activating the wipe. I expected to escape before Crownspire. You did not. A concise review of my performance. Why send me to the university if Crail controlled it? Because B-17 is the only place he cannot enter. Your mother's blood sealed it. Yours can open it. And mine can open the Covenant archive. Not if the 4 heirs choose freedom before you use it. Rowan stared at the dark track. That is what Crail never understood. The Lodestar was not created to command the houses. The original role was a witness. The bond worked only while each warden renewed it willingly. Later generations turned choice into ritual obligation.
Obsession was the result. So proximity to me does not create love. No, it removes the constant pain of unstable gifts. Relief can feel like love to someone who has never known silence. Existing affection becomes difficult to separate from dependency. That was the most important thing anyone had said. Maren loved me before her power emerged, but my presence offered physical peace she might fear losing. Aster connected me to the only quiet period of her life. Vesper bound me to safety before her shadow awakened. Solenne had been raised to believe marriage with a lodestar would save her people. Every feeling might be genuine. Every feeling was also under pressure. Then I cannot accept any of them while the bond is unstable. Rowan gave me a tired look. You can accept affection. You cannot exploit dependence. There is a difference. Did you? He looked away. The train emerged beneath the university's astronomy building. Rowan stopped beside a disused platform.
We climbed a stairway into a locked storage room and reached the main basement corridor. Room B-17 stood behind a rusted fire door. There was no handle, only a brass plate shaped like a compass. I placed Rowan's compass against it. Nothing happened. Blood, he said. You literally warned me not to give anyone my blood. The door is not a person. Your communication style caused this family crisis. I pressed my blood-stained receipt against the plate. It contained Rowan's blood, not mine. The compass spun backward, and the wall opened. Mother sealed it for either of us, I said. Rowan smiled with an old sadness. She usually planned for my mistakes. Inside, lamps turned on one by one. The room was larger than the building above, extending into the hill. Shelves held paper records, mechanical devices, and thousands of glass cylinders filled with moving light. At the center stood a table beneath a model of Crownspire. A woman appeared beside it. I reached for a weapon.
Rowan stopped me. The woman was translucent. She had my eyes and a tired, familiar smile. "Hello, Elias," the image said. "If you are seeing this, your father ignored at least 6 sensible precautions." "Only 6?" I asked. Rowan sat heavily in a chair. "Your mother was an optimist. Her name was Elias Mercer. I remembered her voice only in pieces, yet the recording made the years between us collapse. The Heart Archive is not a treasure," Helena continued. "It is a record of promises. Each light in this room contains a voluntary bond made between a lodestar and a warden. Crail believes combining them will grant command over the 4 gifts. He is wrong. Forced convergence will break the winter seal and release the stored emotional energy beneath Crownspire. The model city lit from below. Blue lines spread beneath buildings like veins. To prevent that, Helena said, the current heirs must enter the archive and decide whether to release their inherited bonds. The lodestar may witness, but cannot choose for them. If even one is coerced, the seal fails. "How do we bring them here?" I asked, forgetting the image could not answer. It answered anyway. "You are probably wondering how to bring them here." Rowan smiled faintly. She knew you. 4 entrance tokens are hidden where each family surrendered its first choice. The Lockwood token rests in Elowin's final flame. The Arden token is concealed inside Morel's pendant. The Quinn token lives in the original master recording of the silent aria. The Rook token remains within the winter fragment. Gather them before midnight on the solstice. I checked the date. The solstice was tomorrow. An alarm sounded above us. Crail had reached the university. The archive doors began to close. My phone regained service. 73 messages arrived simultaneously. Maren's was first. "Where are you?" Aster's followed. "Please answer, I can hear your pulse nowhere." Vesper sent only a photograph of Morel's empty pendant chain. Solenne wrote, "The Rook fragment has been taken from Tamsin." Then Tamsin called. "Elias, do not come back to the hotel," she said. "Mirel joined Crail. They have the winter piece, the Quinn master, and Maren's broken necklace. They are moving everything to the observatory. Are you safe? Debatable. Your 4 admirers are about to destroy the hotel because they think Crail took you." I looked at the archive model. 4 sections of Crownspire were already glowing. "Tell them I am alive," I said. "And tell them to meet me at B17. They reached the astronomy building in 14 minutes. Maren came through the main door with a melted hotel key still in her fist. Aster entered through a broken window because the locked door did not open quickly enough. Vesper emerged from the shadow beneath my chair. Solenne arrived last, riding a column of ice up the exterior wall. All 4 saw me beside Rowan. The relief on their faces lasted less than a second. Then it became fury. Maren grabbed my coat. "You fell into a shaft." "Not deliberately." Aster touched the bruise on my throat. "Someone hurt your voice."
Vesper stared at the blood on my sleeve. Give me Krail's location. Solenne examined my swollen ankle. You are no longer capable of traveling. I will carry you. Nobody is carrying or murdering anyone. I am alive. Dad is alive. The archive is open. Rowan looked from one woman to the next and slowly covered his face. What? I asked. I hoped the pattern might skip a generation. Tamsin arrived behind them, breathless and delighted. It did not. Rowan pointed at Maren. Lockwood. Maren, she corrected. He pointed at Vesper. Morel's daughter. Vesper. Quinn? Aster nodded. Rook? Solenne inclined her head. My father looked at me. Did you deliberately collect one from each house? They collected themselves. That was also my experience.
Maren's flames sparked. Vesper's shadow sharpened. Aster inhaled. Solenne lowered the temperature. Rowan raised both hands. A poor joke. I apologize. You should, I said. They have names, and none of them exist to complete a set. The four women relaxed by a nearly invisible degree. Helena's projection activated again. She explained the archive, the entrance tokens, and the voluntary release. When her image described inherited bonds, each heir reacted differently. Maren watched the floor. Aster hugged herself. Vesper stared at Rowan. Solenne remained still enough to resemble ice sculpture. If we release the bonds, Aster asked, will Elias stop quieting our gifts? Yes, Rowan said. Eventually. Your abilities will become your responsibility again. Will affection disappear? Vesper asked. No one can promise what part of a feeling survives when pain and relief are separated, he replied. Maren looked at me. Is that what you want? I want every choice in this room to be real. And if we choose you after? Then I will believe you. The answer frightened them more than rejection. Rejection could be fought, delayed, or blamed on rivals. Freedom meant they might discover an emotion they had built their lives around was partly dependency. Solenne spoke first. I will release the bond. Everyone turned toward her. The Rooks taught me that binding a lodestar was a sacred duty, she continued. If the duty was manufactured, continuing it would dishonor those who died protecting us. And the administrative marriage? Tamsin asked. Solenne's cheeks cooled to a delicate blue. I will reevaluate the paperwork. Aster lifted her chin. I will release it too. I want to know whether my voice can become mine. Vesper whispered, if the hunger remains, will you stop looking at me as though I am broken? I do not think you are broken, I said.
I think you were taught that holding tightly is the same as keeping safe. Her fingers loosened from the scarf.
Then I choose release. Maren was last. I know I loved you before any gift awakened. Then the bond has nothing worth preserving. She met my eyes. I choose it. The model city dimmed slightly, registering their intent, but intent was not enough. We still needed the tokens. Tamsin spread the evidence across the archive table. Krail had transported everything to the observatory except the Lockwood token, which no one had located. Elowin's final flame sounded like a metaphor, but Lockwood stored family memories inside heat-resistant crystal. Maren believed her aunt's memorial lantern might contain it. The lantern stood in the Lockwood Tower. We left Rowan in B-17 with Tamsin, despite his objections. He could barely stand, and someone needed to study Helena's records for a way into the observatory. Try not to get captured again, I said.
I was about to give you the same advice. Mine has supporting evidence.
Maren led me through university tunnels to the financial district. Aster, Vesper, and Solenne followed at a distance to avoid combining their fields. The Lockwood Tower had closed after the hotel incident. Guards protected every entrance. Maren called her mother. I need access to Aunt Elowin's memorial. The reply was loud enough for me to hear. You need to come home and stop humiliating this family over a boy. Maren's jaw tightened. The boy has a name. The lodestar is a strategic asset. Heat rippled along the phone. I touched Maren's elbow. Your decision. She took a breath. He is Elias. I love him, and I have behaved badly because I was afraid. I am fixing that. You will open the memorial chamber or I will enter without permission and publish every Lockwood document about the first convergence. Silence. You would destroy your inheritance, her mother said. If it requires treating people as assets, it deserves destruction. The side door unlocked.
We took an express elevator to the 72nd floor. The memorial chamber was a round room lined with black stone. At its center, a crystal lantern held a flame that had burned since Elowen died. Maren's parents waited beside it. Her father looked older than the man in financial magazines. Her mother resembled Maren without the warmth. Rowan claims Elowen sacrificed herself to close Krail's chamber, Maren said. Is it true? Her father looked at the lantern. Yes. The single word changed her childhood. You told me she ran away. The directorate threatened war if the houses rejected the official record, her mother said. We protected the family. You protected the lie. The flames surged, responding to her grief. Inside it, a woman appeared. Maren Lockwood was young, smoke-streaked and bleeding.
The memory had waited 20 years for an heir willing to question the story. If you can see me, Elowen said. Someone finally chose truth over reputation. The token is not inside this lantern. The flame itself is the token. It will follow only an heir who refuses ownership of the lodestar. Maren's mother stepped forward. Do not answer rashly. Maren looked at me. Fire reflected in her eyes. Elias, I release every claim I imagined I had because I knew you first, loved you longest, or protected you most. If you choose someone else, I will survive it. If you choose no one, I will still protect the freedom I failed to respect. The flame left the lantern. It circled her hand without burning and condensed into a small amber disk. Maren began to cry. Not elegantly. Her shoulders shook, and she covered her mouth like a child trying not to make noise. I wanted to hold her. I also remembered the rule. May I hug you? I asked. She nodded. I pulled her against me. Her parents watched as the daughter they had raised to control a dynasty chose uncertainty instead. I am still going to want you, Maren whispered into my coat. Wanting is allowed. Jealousy? Feeling it is allowed. Weaponizing it is not. I dislike how reasonable you are. You brought 3 sets of handcuffs to breakfast. Past behavior. When we left, her father gave us access codes for the observatory's Lockwood entrance. Her mother did not apologize, but she ordered the guards to stand down and promised to delay family delegates. It was not redemption. It was useful movement. The Quinn master recording was stored beneath Aster's label headquarters. Krail had sent a team to retrieve it, but Aster knew the original was not in the advertised vault. At 16, she had hidden it in a practice studio because the recording captured her first uncontrolled use of power. We entered through a fan merchandise warehouse. Giant cardboard versions of Aster smiled down from the shelves. This is unsettling, I said. I once found a life-size one in my manager's bathroom. More unsettling. Aster guided us into an acoustic corridor. The others remained outside because the studio amplified resonance. I followed her into a room with walls covered in handwritten lyrics. She removed a vent grill and retrieved an old digital recorder. Finch's first broadcast, she said. Before I streamed it, I recorded a test here. She pressed play. A younger Aster spoke hesitantly into the microphone. She introduced herself as Finch, stumbled over the first sentence, and laughed. Then she sang. The melody was raw, imperfect, and completely free of the polished control that defined her career. Halfway through, another voice entered the recording. Mine. That is impossible, I said. My voice on the track was younger, distorted by static, but unmistakable. I said, keep going. You sound like someone opening a window. I remembered typing those words in chat after the live broadcast, not speaking them during a private test. The archive connected us before we met, Aster whispered. Your resonance crossed the platform. The recording began to glow. Aster reached for it, then stopped. If I release the bond, I may hear the crowd again. Every whisper, every thought hiding behind breath. You learned to control your voice under people who benefited from your dependence. Imagine what you can learn when the teacher wants you free. Will you help me? If you ask, and if helping does not become ownership in reverse. She smiled through tears. You always ruin perfect romantic lines with conditions. Conditions prevent imperfect basements. Aster placed her palm on the recorder. I release the silence you gave me. I will build my own. The device dissolved into a silver ring of light that settled around her wrist. The studio door burst open. Her manager stood outside with Meridian listeners.
The bruises from our car fight marked his face. "Aster, step away from the successor." She faced him without hiding behind me. "My contract is terminated." "You do not have that authority." Aster removed the expensive in-ear monitor bearing the Meridian logo. "Listen carefully. I am not giving you a command. I want you fully conscious when you understand." She spoke into the studio microphone. Every speaker in the headquarters activated. "For 9 years, Meridian staff drugged me, controlled my movements, used my voice in experiments, and told me I would kill people if I left. The evidence is now being delivered to every newsroom and prosecutor in Crownspire." Tamsin had scheduled the release. Employees emerged from offices, phones rose. The manager's power depended on secrecy, and Aster had removed it in one sentence. He ordered the listeners forward. Aster sang a soft, descending scale. Their sound-dampening earpieces fell apart at the screws. She did not command the men. She simply opened the studio door wider. "You may decide whether his salary is worth prison," she said. The listeners looked at one another. One put down his baton. The others followed. The manager ran. Vesper extended a shadow across his path, but Aster stopped her. "Let him reach the lobby. The cameras are waiting." That was colder than violence and far more effective. Outside, a crowd had already formed. Aster stepped before them without a planned costume or approved statement. The noise struck her. I saw the pain in the way her hands curled. She looked back at me once. I did not move closer. This had to be hers. She faced the crowd and began the unfinished Finch melody. Her voice shook on the first line. By the second, she had separated the thousands of echoes into harmony. The crowd quieted, not through compulsion, but because they wanted to listen. When she returned, the silver token shone steadily around her wrist. "I could hear everything," she said. "And?" "Most people were singing badly in their heads. A survivable tragedy." She laughed and asked to hold my hand. I agreed until we reached the vehicle. Vesper watched from the front seat, turning the blue scarf around her fingers. "My token is with Mother," she said. "She will not surrender it because Rowan is the only choice she has never been able to control." Rowan's voice came through the car speaker from B-17. "Mirelle does not want control. She wants proof that I did not leave because she was unworthy." "Did you?" Vesper asked. He was silent too long. "Dad," I said. "I left because I was afraid of all of them and ashamed of my own choices. Mirelle frightened me most because part of me enjoyed being needed. I let her believe we had a future whenever it made escape easier. Then I disappeared without telling her the truth." Vesper's eyes hardened. "You used my mother." "Yes." Maren and Aster looked at me, perhaps expecting me to defend him. "You owe her an apology," I said. "I owe several. But an apology does not require you to accept captivity." "Correct." Vesper stared through the windshield. "She built my life around the wound you left. Every lesson was about never losing what belonged to us. Every person was either an asset or a thief." "That explains her," I said. "It does not decide you. You always say that, because people keep trying to inherit decisions." Tamsin interrupted from the archive. "I found an observatory route. Mirelle and Creole are preparing the convergence chamber at midnight tomorrow, but the Arden pendant is not there yet." Mirelle returned to her family residence. Vesper sat upright. "She is waiting for me." "Likely," Rowan said. "Then I will go alone." "No," I replied. Her head turned sharply. "You said choices must be ours." "Going alone is your choice. Letting you walk into an obvious trap without support is mine. We go together, but you lead." Vesper considered this, then nodded. The Arden residence occupied an entire island in the river. No bridge connected it to the shore. Visitors arrived by boat, helicopter, or shadow path. Vesper took us through the last option. Darkness folded around my body. For one breathless instant, I felt every place in the city where light failed to reach. Then we stepped into a glass conservatory filled with night-blooming flowers. Mirelle sat at a table set for 3. One place was hers. One was Vesper's. The third held a cup of coffee prepared exactly as Rowan liked it 20 years ago. "You brought his son," she said. "He brought me," Vesper replied. Mirelle smiled at that distinction. The black pendant rested at her throat. "Elias, you have your father's eyes and your mother's habit of entering rooms where sensible people expect death. I came for the token and the truth.
Everyone says truth when they mean leverage.
Then keep the token while we talk. That surprised her. Vesper sat across from her mother. I remained standing behind Vesper's chair. Maren, Aster, and Solenne waited outside the shadow boundary, close enough to respond, but not invade the confrontation. Did you help Krail capture Rowan? Vesper asked. Yes. Did you know he planned to use Elias? I knew he required a successor. I believed the completed covenant would heal the bloodlines and return what was stolen from us. Rowan was not stolen. He left. The conservatory windows darkened. Morel's composure cracked. He promised! Rowan's voice came from the phone in my pocket. I did. Morel stood so quickly the table overturned. Show yourself! I cannot. Krail's people are searching the university. Coward! Yes, I was. Rowan's voice shook. I told you I would stay after the convergence.
Then Elowen died. Helena was injured, and I discovered Krail had amplified our attachments deliberately. I panicked. Instead of trusting you with the truth, I vanished. Shadows filled the conservatory, forming hands, chains, and half-seen faces. You married her, Morel said. You gave Helena the life you promised me. I loved Helena. I also cared for you, and I used that care badly. I am sorry. Morel's shadow struck the phone from my hand and crushed it. Vesper did not flinch. Mother, look at me. Not now. You made every year of my life about a man who was gone. You intercepted my letters because you could not bear for me to choose a Mercer who might choose me back. Morel turned toward her daughter. Vesper removed the blue scarf and placed it on the table. I love Elias. I do not know yet what shape that love should take, but I would rather lose him freely than keep him the way you tried to keep Rowan. The pendant cracked. Morel grabbed it with both hands. Shadow chains erupted from the floor and wrapped around Vesper. I moved, but Vesper shouted, "No!" Her shadow did not resist her mother's. Instead, she stood inside the chains and continued speaking. I release the claim that he belongs to me because I suffered without him. I release the childhood promise he was too young to make. I release your grief from my future. The pendant shattered. A black glass disc fell into Vesper's open hand. Every shadow in the conservatory vanished. Morning light, though the hour was evening, seemed to enter from nowhere. Morel sank beside the overturned table. For the first time, she looked less like a matriarch and more like a woman who had spent half her life guarding an empty chair. Vesper knelt in front of her. "Come with us," she said. "Help stop Krail." Morel touched her daughter's face. "If I do, Rowan will still leave." "Yes." The honest answer made Morel laugh once, bitterly. "You really are stronger than I raised you to be." Alarms sounded across the island. Krail's image appeared on every glass wall. The crystal in his chest had spread black veins up his neck. "Thank you, Vesper," he said. "The Arden token is awake." The black disc lifted from her hand. It flew through the conservatory roof, breaking glass, and vanished toward the observatory. At the same time, Maren's amber token and Aster's silver ring tore away from them. Solenne screamed as the insulated rook case disappeared from B-17. Krail had used the activation of the third token to summon all four. "The archive opens at midnight," he said. "Bring me the successor, or I will open it with the previous Lodestar's heart." The screens went black. We had freed the tokens and delivered every one of them to the enemy. We returned to B-17 and found the astronomy basement torn open. The door that Helena's blood had sealed for 20 years lay in two pieces. Krail had not broken the lock. The awakened tokens had opened it from the inside. Tamsin sat against the archive table, pressing a cloth to a cut above her eye. 3 unconscious Meridian agents surrounded her, which improved my mood slightly. Rowan was gone. "I got 2, she said, pointing at the agents. "He got 1. Krail reached through the model with some kind of black tether and pulled your father into it." The miniature observatory glowed like a coal. A figure shaped like Rowan stood inside the dome. "Can we follow?" I asked. Helena's projection appeared. "The central path will open only for the successor. Each warden must enter through her family threshold. Once inside, no person may complete another's choice.
What happens if Krail forces the archive? Crownspire becomes the physical expression of every emotion stored beneath it. Fire, silence, darkness, and winter will expand until the city can no longer support life. Maren looked toward the ceiling. How long?
At the current rate, first rupture in 2 hours, and total failure before dawn. Tamsin stood. We need evacuation. Morel had followed us from the island. She took out her phone and called every Arden office, ordering them to open shadow corridors from the central district. Maren contacted her parents and turned Lockwood Towers into public shelters. Aster commandeered the emergency broadcast network. Solenne warned the Rook delegation to cool underground transit lines without sealing exits. In less than 5 minutes, the women whom Krail expected to fight over possession of me were working to move strangers out of danger. That was our first victory. Helena opened a drawer in the archive table. Inside rested 5 thin metal bands. These will prevent accidental resonance until you reach the chamber, her image said. They cannot prevent deliberate use. We each fastened one around a wrist. The pressure I had felt near the heirs faded. Maren's presence became simply warm.
Aster's breathing stopped echoing in my chest. Vesper's shadow looked ordinary. Solenne's cold no longer pulled at my blood. All 4 stared at me. What? I asked. Aster's face went pale. I can hear the building again. Maren rubbed her sternum. You feel far away. Vesper took one involuntary step toward me and forced herself to stop. Solenne closed her eyes as pain traveled across her usually controlled features. The bands were a preview of release. Their bodies had adapted to the relief my resonance provided. Removing it hurt. We can stop, I said. Choice includes changing your mind. Maren tightened her band. No, if I remove this because discomfort frightens me, I will spend my life wondering whether I chose you or anesthesia. Aster began humming the Finch melody under her breath. I continue. Vesper wrapped the blue scarf around her own wrist rather than mine. Continue. Solenne straightened. Continue. We studied the observatory plans. 4 family thresholds surrounded the dome. Krail controlled the central stair. Meridian teams occupied the hill, but the evacuation would stretch them thin. I enter from the university quadrangle, I said. The obvious path. No, Maren replied automatically. She stopped, breathed, and tried again. I believe that exposes you to unacceptable risk. Better phrasing. Same objection. Krail needs me alive until the chamber opens. He will concentrate guards on capturing me, which clears your thresholds. Tamsin guides evacuation and controls the outer systems. Morel disrupts Meridian shadow routes. Each of you reaches the chamber and makes your choice. I free Dad. Vesper folded her arms. What if Krail takes you first? Then you do not trade your freedom for mine. 4 expressions hardened. That was not a suggestion, I said. If he says binding yourselves will save me, he is lying. If he threatens me, complete the release anyway. Aster's eyes filled. You ask us to watch you suffer. I ask you not to let suffering make the decision. That is how he controlled every generation before us. Maren looked at Helena's image. Is there another option? Yes, Helena said. I disliked the speed of that answer. The successor may absorb the 4 bonds and become a permanent living seal. The heirs would be freed immediately. The lodestar would remain within the archive for the rest of his life. Maren ripped off her metal band. No, she said. Heat snapped through the room. Aster removed hers. Vesper's shadow rose. Ice covered Solenne's bracelet. The pull between us returned with crushing intensity. Put them back on, I ordered. You are not entering a tomb for us, Maren said. I have no intention of doing that. The permanent seal is a last resort, not the plan. Promise. I cannot promise what I will do if the alternative kills the city. Then I cannot promise what I will do if Krail threatens you. We stood in a circle of heat, sound, shadow, and frost. Exactly where every past convergence had failed. I lowered my voice. Maren, you said you could survive if I chose someone else. Can you survive if I choose duty? Her anger broke into fear. Aster, you said you would build your own silence. Vesper, you released the childhood promise. Solenne, you chose truth over duty. Do not make those choices conditional on my safety. If you do,
They were never choices. One by one, they replaced the bands. Maren grabbed my jacket and pulled me close enough that our foreheads touched. "May I kiss you?" The question landed in the worst possible moment, and therefore felt completely like her. Not as a goodbye, as a reason to return. I considered the cameras, the tracker, the fever, the way she had confronted her family, and the fact that she had learned to ask while the city trembled beneath us. Yes, she kissed me once, briefly and deliberately. No heat flared, no bond pulled. It was only Maren, terrified and hopeful. When she stepped back, Aster looked offended. "The no competition rule, suspended during potential apocalypse," Tamsin said. "It absolutely is not," I replied. Vesper lifted a finger. "May I request a future reservation?" "Survive first." Solenne appeared to calculate whether marriage paperwork counted as competition. "Do not ask," I told her. For the first time, she smiled. We left B-17 separately. The city above had changed. Heat lightning flickered between Lockwood towers. Snow covered one side of every street while the other steamed. Shadows stretched against the direction of the lamps. Aster's emergency instructions emerged from public speakers with strange whispers beneath them. The rupture had begun. Citizens moved downhill toward shelters. Tamsin coordinated traffic from a university control room. Morel opened dark doorways between blocked streets, allowing families to cross whole districts in a step. Every portal weakened her. By the 10th, blood ran from her nose. "You do not have to prove anything to Rowan," Vesper told her. "I am proving something to you," Morel replied. Vesper embraced her mother. Then she entered the Arden threshold and vanished. Aster's route began beneath the Grand Lyric Theater. Fans had gathered despite the evacuation, convinced her earlier statement was part of a publicity event. She climbed onto the theater steps. "I need you to go home," she said without power. The crowd shouted questions. Krail hijacked the speakers. A layered frequency turned excitement into panic. People pushed toward the doors. Aster removed her metal band. Thousands of voices hit her at once. She nearly fell. Then she sang the Finch melody, not loudly, but with perfect clarity. The panic frequency separated from the crowd noise like oil from water. She caught it, inverted it, and sent silence through the speakers. "Walk," she told the crowd in her natural voice. "Do not run. Help the person beside you." They listened, because she had earned their attention. Once the steps cleared, Aster replaced the band and descended through the theater threshold. Solenne entered the subway where blue ice had sealed a train full of passengers. Rook elders urged her to abandon them and protect the winter fragment. "The fragment is already lost," she said. "Then the city is condemned." A duty that accepts civilian death was written by someone standing far from it. She removed her band and placed both hands on the frozen train. The cold tried to move through her toward me on the hill. Instead, she drew it into herself. Cracks spread across the ice, doors opened, passengers escaped while frost climbed Solenne's arms to her shoulders. The Rook elders watched their maiden choose strangers over doctrine. When the final passenger left, they bowed and opened the winter threshold for her. Maren reached the Lockwood Tower Plaza. A ruptured gas main had created a wall of fire between evacuees and the shelter. Her mother ordered guards to protect the tower assets first. Maren removed her band. The fire recognized her fear and surged. For years, she had treated love the same way. Surround the precious thing. Consume every route by which it might leave. Call the result safety. She stepped into the blaze. Instead of pulling the heat toward her heart, she raised both arms and spread it across the empty sky. A bridge opened through the flames. People ran toward the shelter. Her parents stood at the tower entrance. Her mother hesitated, then ordered every private floor open to the public. Maren replaced the band and walked through the Lockwood threshold. I approached the observatory from the university quadrangle, wearing my yellow courier jacket. Meridian guards formed 3 lines across the hill. Krail's voice sounded from hidden speakers. "Elias Mercer, you have a talent for choosing theatrical clothing. People underestimate couriers. People underestimate mechanisms until they fail." The first line advanced. I used the terrain. The hill's old irrigation channels ran beneath the stone. Tamsin opened the valves remotely, flooding the path. I threw 2 pulse batons into the water. The discharge disabled Meridian armor and left the guards conscious but unable to coordinate. The second line used insulated boots. I triggered the observatory's ancient counterweight system. Bronze models of planets swung from the courtyard arches, scattering the formation. It was not elegant, but Saturn hit with conviction. The third line carried no weapons. They were university students with black crystal marks on their throats. Krail had bound them as listeners. I could not attack without hurting innocent people. "He says you will kill us if we let you pass," one student said.
He also evacuated his own staff before the rupture. I showed them the hotel video on my phone. He strapped my father to a frame and planned to inject me. You do not have to trust me. Just ask why the man protecting the city is beneath an armored dome while you stand outside it. The students hesitated. Krail activated their throat marks. They screamed and charged. I ran backward, drawing them toward the astronomy fountain. Tamsin switched the water jets to maximum. The spray struck their throats. Black crystals conducted the mineral-rich water and shorted against one another. I used the resonance baton on the fountain base. The marks cracked. Students collapsed, gasping but free. The central stair opened. "You are annoyingly resourceful," Krail said. "Dad says it is hereditary. Your father mistook escape for victory. I came toward you." I climbed. Inside the observatory, the old public halls had become a maze. Copper frames rotated around the dome, each carrying a glass cylinder from the archive. Memories whispered from them. I heard generations of wardens promising loyalty, begging not to be abandoned, threatening rivals, and calling captivity protection. At the first junction, a door opened onto Maren's path. She stood in a room filled with replicas of me, a child drawing beside her, a teenager repairing her bicycle, the soaked courier beneath the tram shelter. Each memory offered the life she had imagined. One version of me wore a wedding ring, another held a baby. A third sat willingly behind the windows of her reservoir house while cameras watched. "Stay," the replicas said. "You can keep us safe." Maren closed her eyes. "None of you are Elias," she said. "You are my fear, wearing his face." She burned the room without touching the memories themselves. A door appeared beyond the flames. I could not help her or even call out. The archive glass separated us. I kept moving. Aster's path crossed mine next. She stood on an empty stage while an invisible audience booed. At the center waited a silent version of me wearing headphones. "Command him to stay," Krail whispered through the hall. "One word and you will never hear the noise again." Aster approached the illusion. "Please stay," she said. The illusion did not move. "That is a request," she continued. "You may say no." It walked away. Aster cried, but she did not command it back. The stage curtains opened. Vesper faced a corridor of closing doors. Behind each one, a younger version of me called her name. The final door led to her mother's conservatory, where Morel waited with a lock. "Close it," the illusion of Morel said. "This time he cannot leave." Vesper took the lock, placed it on the floor, and stepped through the open doorway alone. Solenne's path was a frozen sanctuary. Rook elders knelt before a throne where I sat in ceremonial white, bound by silver cords. "The city survives," they said. "Your people are safe."
Solenne drew her curved blade. For a terrible moment, I thought she would cut down the illusion's guards and claim the throne. Instead, she severed my cords. The false sanctuary cracked beneath her feet. All four paths converged above the central chamber. I entered below. Rowan hung within a ring of copper, his chest connected to Krail's crystal by black threads. The four tokens orbited the chamber. The winter's seal spun beneath a transparent floor, fractured into glowing blue plates. Krail stood beside my father. "You made it," he said. "Now decide whether everyone you care for deserves to die free. Those are not the available choices. They are the only choices power has ever respected." Krail opened his hand. The crystal in his chest pulsed. Black threads tightened around Rowan's heart, and the floor split another inch. Through the widening crack, I saw not magma or ice, but memory. Centuries of fear compressed into light. The four heirs appeared on balconies above us. Each stood before her family token. Metal gates separated them from the chamber. "Bind yourselves to the successor," Krail ordered, "and I will stabilize the seal. Refuse,
and Crownspire dies. Maren gripped her gate. You cannot stabilize anything. The central piece has infected you. It has perfected me. It has made you repeat the same sentence for 20 years, Rowan said weakly. Krail tightened the threads. I studied the mechanism instead of his speech. The tokens orbited clockwise. The seal plates below moved counterclockwise. Every time one token passed above its matching plate, a black thread connected it to Krail's chest. He was not holding the system together. He was interrupting a cycle that wanted to close naturally. Dad, the first convergence. How did you break the frame? Reverse the witness current.
Meaning? The machine expected me to accept their vows. I refused all four. The heirs heard him. Vesper pressed close to her gate. You rejected them, and Elowen still died. Because I refused after Krail had already forced the tokens. Choice came too late. Krail laughed. Choice is a bedtime story told by people without leverage. I removed my metal band. The full resonance struck me. Maren's fear burned beneath my skin. Aster's noise filled my skull. Vesper's hunger became an ache behind my ribs. Solenne's duty settled on my shoulders like a glacier. None of them were simple. Love lived beside terror, desire beside relief, genuine memory beside inherited compulsion. Krail expected the flood to erase me. I remained standing. I can feel them, I said. That is not the same as owning them. I pressed the resonance baton against the floor and reversed the witness current. The black threads shifted from Rowan to me. Pain tore through my chest. Krail smiled, believing I had taken the permanent seal. But I did not accept the vows trapped in the tokens. I reflected them. Every forced promise in the archive flowed back toward the person who had gathered them. Krail staggered. Voices filled the chamber. Stay with me. You are all I need. If I cannot have you, nobody will. You promised, do not leave. Thousands of demands entered the crystal in his chest. Black veins spread across his face. Stop, he shouted. You wanted power without choice, I said. Here it is. He ripped the baton from my hand and crushed it. The reflected current stopped. I fell to one knee. Above me, the heirs' gates opened. Each token presented a different vow. The amber disc offered Maren a future in which I never left her property, never met another woman, and never made a dangerous choice. All she had to say was, I accept. She picked up the disc. I love Elias Mercer, she said. I do not accept authority over his movement, work, friendships, or future. I release the Lockwood claim. The amber disc became flame and entered the seal below. Aster's silver ring promised perfect silence as long as my voice remained hers alone. She lifted it to her lips. I loved the person who listened when I had no audience. I released the Quinn claim to his attention, his answer, and his affection. The ring became a pure note and joined the flame. Vesper's black disc showed our lost childhood, repeating forever behind a locked door. She wrapped the blue scarf around it. I love the boy I remember and the man I am still learning. I released the Arden claim created by separation, grief, and promises neither of us understood. The disc became shadow, soft rather than consuming, and entered the seal. Solenne's blue shard offered survival for every Rook child in exchange for a marriage I could never leave. She drew her curved blade. I love him, she said, surprising even herself. Not administratively. Despite everything, Tamsin's distant laugh came through my earbud. Solenne continued, cheeks bright with cold. I release the Rook claim to his body, residence, descendants, and duty. My people will survive by our choices. She cut the shard in half. It became snow and entered the seal. The four forces met beneath me. For one breath, the city became silent. Then the crystal in Krail's chest tore free. He screamed as it rose above the chamber. Without him blocking the cycle, the seal plates began closing. Blue fractures knit together. Rowan's copper ring opened. He fell. I caught him with my injured leg and nearly joined him on the floor. I had that, he said. You were falling head first. A controlled descent. The observatory shook. Krail reached the floating crystal before the seal consumed it. He drove it back into his chest with both hands. The four released bonds flooded him at once. His body changed. Heat split his skin with orange cracks. Ice covered one side of his face. Shadows multiplied his arms across the walls. His scream became a frequency that peeled copper from the frames. "If I cannot command the covenant," he said through several voices, "I will become it." He struck the floor. The chamber inverted. Gravity pulled toward the dome. Rowan and I lifted from the ground. I caught a copper rail with one hand and my father's wrist with the other. The 4 heirs clung to their balconies as debris flew upward. Krail walked through the air toward the seal, dragging the released tokens out of it. "He is reopening the cycle," Solenne shouted. Maren sent fire toward him. His ice absorbed it. Aster attacked with sound. His shadows dispersed the vibration. Vesper tried to bind him. Black arms caught her shadow. Solenne froze the crystal, but Krail's stolen heat melted it. He had designed defenses against each family, not against ordinary people.
"Tamsin," I said into the earbud, "can you access the public observatory array?"
"I can access the coffee machine if you give me 30 seconds. Rotate the dome west and open every shutter. That exposes the chamber to the storm." "Exactly." Motors groaned. The enormous dome began turning. Krail looked up too late. Every shutter opened. Wind, snow, rain, ash, emergency broadcasts, traffic noise, and the heat of a city full of living people crashed into the chamber. Krail had mastered 4 purified bloodline powers inside a controlled system. The uncontrolled world was messier. Morel opened a shadow corridor at the western shutter. Lockwood firefighters directed heat through it. Rook workers sent cooling mist from the subway. Aster's fans, following her evacuation song, repeated the melody across thousands of phones. University students aimed floodlights into the dome, leaving Krail's stolen shadows nowhere stable to form. The whole city entered the experiment.
Not as assets, as volunteers.
Krail lost control of gravity. Rowan and I hit the floor. The heirs crossed their balconies and joined us in the center. "The seal needs a witness." Helena's voice emerged from the archive cylinders. "One may remain, or many may share the memory." The permanent lodestar option had been built on another inherited assumption, that a single person must carry everyone else's pain. "Share it," I said. Krail lunged. Maren intercepted him with a wall of heat. Aster broke his attack frequency. Vesper pinned his real shadow beneath the floodlights. Solenne froze the crystal instead of his body. I placed my hand on the seal. Rowan placed his beside mine. Then Maren, Aster, Vesper, and Solenne joined us. Through the open dome, thousands of citizens heard Aster's request. "If you choose to remember what was done here, say your own name." Names rose from streets, shelters, trains, towers, and homes. Quiet names, frightened names, angry names.
No command compelled them. Each volunteer took a fragment of the archive memory. The burden spread so widely that no single mind became a prison. The winter seal closed. Krail's crystal shattered. Power left him in 4 directions. Fire returned to the Lockwood line without inherited possessiveness. Quinn voices became sound rather than command until trained. Arden's shadows released memories they had hoarded. Rook cold settled into the ground instead of living inside duty. Krail became an ordinary man in an expensive torn suit. He looked small. He grabbed a broken copper spear and charged me anyway. Rowan stepped forward, but I moved first. I caught Krail's wrist, turned beneath his arm, and used the momentum to put him face down against the sealed glass floor. "You are a mechanism," he gasped. "No," I said, binding his hands with the copper chain. "I am the person deciding what happens to the mechanism." Police entered through the opened dome routes. This time, the officers were not Meridian listeners. Tamsin had sent the evidence to national investigators before the operation began. They arrested Krail on charges that would require several pages and a very patient judge. Burrell watched from the shutter as Rowan approached her. He stopped beyond arm's reach. "I am sorry," he said in person. "I know. I am not returning to the life you imagined. I know that too." Her smile trembled. "Knowing is unpleasant. Usually." Morel looked at Vesper. "Our daughter is braver than either of us." "She is your daughter," Rowan corrected gently. "I cared for her, but I will not claim a role she does not choose." Vesper stepped between them. "You are both part of my family. Neither of you gets to use me as a bridge to the other. Rowan nodded. Morel did the same. It was not a warm reunion. It was honest, which was more valuable. The dome stopped shaking.
Dawn light touched the horizon even though sunrise was still hours away. The archive released stored luminescence over Crownspire like a second aurora. Maren removed her metal band. She waited. No desperate heat pulled her toward me. Her gift remained, but the hunger beneath it was gone. Aster removed hers next. The city's voices reached her, distant and manageable. Vesper's shadow lay calmly at her feet. Solenne's breath formed one small cloud, and no storm. All four looked at me again. This time, there was no supernatural pressure in the room. Maren walked over first. "I still love you," she said. Aster laughed with sudden relief. "So do I." Vesper touched the scarf at her wrist. The hunger changed. The love did not. Solenne looked almost annoyed by her own conclusion. My reevaluation produced the same result. Rowan patted my shoulder. "Good luck. You are not leaving. I require medical attention. You have used that excuse for 20 years.
Tamsin appeared at the chamber entrance, covered in dust and carrying a first aid kit.
He actually does require medical attention. So do you. Also, the city believes Elias just proposed to 4 women during an aurora.
I did not.
Public audio lost context.
Maren's eyes brightened. Aster tried not to smile. Vesper looked ready to preserve the rumor as legal evidence. Solenne reached for imaginary paperwork. "Nobody moves," I said. "We are correcting that report immediately." Correcting the report took 3 press conferences, 2 legal statements, and 1 interview in which Tamsin deliberately described me as Crownspire's most disputed delivery worker. The proposal rumor survived all of them. The truth survived too. Meridian facilities opened to investigators. Crail's records proved decades of illegal experiments, coercive contracts, abductions, and engineered conflicts between the warden families. His trial began 6 months later.
Without the crystal, he possessed no unusual power and discovered that ordinary courtroom security was remarkably effective. Aster's former manager tried to claim he had merely followed medical advice. Hundreds of employees testified otherwise. He received a cell, not a severance package. The 4 families dissolved the directorate and created a public council with independent oversight. Morel gave the first testimony. She did not minimize her role in Rowan's capture. Then she used Arden resources to compensate other victims and dismantle the private units that had served her obsessions. Vesper moved out of the island residence. She rented an apartment with windows on all 4 walls and no locks on the interior doors. The symbolism was slightly aggressive, but healthy progress does not have to be subtle. She studied restorative law, returned every item taken from my old room, and asked before keeping the blue scarf. I told her it had always been hers.
Rowan spent 3 weeks in hospital and 6 months answering my questions. I kept a notebook. Every time he said, "It is complicated," I added another page. He had used our savings to pay messengers, hide evidence, and move threatened witnesses. That explained the missing money without excusing his failure to warn me. He apologized and transferred control of every account to me. "I was protecting you," he said. "You were deciding for me." Yes. He looked at Maren when he admitted it. She looked back. Apparently, recovering controllers recognize one another. My mother remained a recording, but B-17 contained years of messages she had prepared. Some explained the bloodlines, some were recipes. One was simply 20 minutes of her reading a book because she feared I would forget her voice. I listened with Rowan beside me. Neither of us pretended not to cry. Maren sold the reservoir house. Before the sale, she invited me to inspect it. Every hidden camera had been removed. The obsessive gallery remained, but she placed her own paintings beside mine. Her journal was closed inside a drawer rather than staged for discovery. "I considered burning everything," she said. "Why?" "Because it proves how long I was unwell. It proves you cared, planned badly, and learned. Keep what belongs to you. Just do not turn memories into chains." She kept the drawings. We went on our first official date 1 month after the observatory. Maren selected a restaurant, asked whether the choice suited me, and did not purchase it when the waiter complimented my coat. Halfway through dessert, she admitted she had already researched the waiter's employment history. "Did you act on the information?" I asked. "No.
Then we call that an intrusive thought and continue eating. She reached across the table. May I hold your hand? I turned my palm upward. Aster rebuilt her career under her own company.
She performed as Aster on stage and revived the Finch channel once a week. The audience grew from 12 listeners to several million, but the broadcast still felt like someone singing near an open window. I never moderated the public chat again. I did, however, sit in the studio during difficult recordings when she asked. Sometimes we talked after midnight. Sometimes we said nothing. Our first date happened in an empty planetarium. She had rented it for privacy, then handed me both keys so I would know I could leave. At the end, she requested a kiss and accepted when I said I was not ready. 2 weeks later, I asked her. Her answer cracked one projector lens. She paid for it. Solenne returned to the White Reach and told the elders the continuation right was abolished. Several objected until she reminded them that she could freeze their council table and conduct the meeting on the floor. The Rooks replaced arranged bonds with voluntary training exchanges. She visited Crownspire every second weekend to study climate engineering. Her first gift to me was a revised sanctuary contract. Every relocation clause had been deleted. The marriage section remained, marked for future discussion. This is not a proposal, she explained. You brought witnesses. Administrative habit. Ask me after we have been on more than 2 dates. Solenne carefully wrote minimum 3 dates in the margin. That is not what I meant. Then your drafting lacks precision. Vesper took the longest to decide what she wanted. We attended counseling separately and together. She stopped calling me brother in public, not because the old bond was shameful, but because she wanted to meet me without hiding inside it. One evening, she placed our childhood letters on the table and said, I loved who you were. I am attracted to who you became. Both are true, and neither gives me a right to you. What do you want now? A first date? We visited the small aquarium we had planned to see before the Ardens took her away. She did not bring guards. I did not promise forever. We watched moon jellies drift through blue water and allowed the present to be enough. Dating 4 intense women was not the reward at the end of a battle. It was work. They were not a matched set, and I did not distribute affection by committee. Each relationship developed at its own speed. Jealousy did not disappear merely because magic stopped feeding it. We made rules. No surveillance, no commands, no property acquisition used as emotional leverage, no shadowing someone's friends, no weather events during arguments, no threatening one another's careers, families, limbs, homes, pets, or favorite restaurants, no entering bedrooms without permission, no marriage documents hidden inside ordinary mail. That last rule was added for Solenne. Honesty applied to me as well. I could not use their devotion for money, protection, status, or convenience. I had to say what I wanted, rather than enjoying attention while pretending not to understand it. If I felt overwhelmed, I said so. If I cared, I said that too. The arrangement looked strange from outside. It was strange from inside. But every person remained because she could leave. That made it real. We continued living at the university villa, though the household changed constantly. Maren occupied the room across from mine. Aster stayed after late broadcasts. Vesper visited for dinner and occasionally fell asleep on the library sofa. Solenne claimed the attic because it remained cold and submitted a written request before installing reinforced windows. Tamsin lived nowhere nearby and still appeared every morning for breakfast. Quality control, she said. My job problem resolved when the university hired me to help catalog the Heart Archive. I accepted only and after an independent board established that no family controlled my salary. At night, I still made occasional deliveries. I liked knowing the city from street level, and after fighting an ancient covenant, ordinary customers seemed relaxing. Mostly. On the first Monday of the new semester, I woke in Maren's car. She sat beside me with coffee and an apologetic expression. You fell asleep in the library, she said. I moved you because the fire alarm activated. Did you activate it? No. I checked the building log. She was telling the truth. You still should have woken me. I know, I panicked. She drove me back and booked an extra counseling session without being asked. On Tuesday, I woke backstage at Aster's rehearsal with noise-canceling headphones on my head. She had found me asleep on the last subway and used her voice to persuade the driver to continue to the theater. That qualifies as relocation, I said. I left a message.
My phone was dead. I made a poor decision.
She apologized to the driver, paid the overtime, and took me home. On Wednesday, Vesper's shadow pulled my bed 3 meters into the hall because she sensed a stranger at the window. The stranger was a window cleaner. Vesper returned the bed, apologized to him, and spent the afternoon learning the difference between vigilance and emergency. On Thursday, Solenne enclosed my room in ice after a weather alert predicted dangerous heat. "You could have adjusted the air conditioner," I said. "It lacked sufficient authority." We added a rule about indoor glaciers. By Friday, Tamsin had placed a sign on my door. "Today's kidnapping attempt requires an appointment." Nobody found it as funny as she did. The women were not magically cured by one brave decision. Obsession had been reinforced by families, powers, fear, and years of isolation. Recovery required repetition. Every apology mattered only when behavior changed afterward.
The attempts became less frequent. The requests became more natural. 1 year after the observatory, we returned to St. Orazin for a charity event supporting Meridian's victims. The hotel had repaired the lobby but preserved one brass luggage cart with a small plaque. Tamsin had written the plaque, so it described the cart as a tactical vehicle. At 8:59:59, I placed a takeout bag on the reception counter. At 9, nothing locked. The lights remained warm. The doors stayed open. No hidden injector fired. Maren entered from the East Hall, not to claim me, but to ask whether I wanted coffee. Aster stepped out of the elevator and waited for my answer. Vesper came down the balcony stairs without guards. Solenne walked through the revolving door while harmless snow dissolved outside. They still looked at me with alarming intensity. I still checked exits out of habit. Then I picked up the food and joined them, because that was my choice.
My father, watching from a table beside Morel and Tamsin, raised his glass. "Another peaceful morning," he said. Morel smiled at him with enough menace to prove some stories never became entirely ordinary. Rowan moved his chair farther away. I laughed. Every day I woke up, someone still wanted to steal me away. The difference was that they had learned to knock. I had learned to answer honestly, and every door in our life could now be opened from both sides.